Okay, we are live. Hey, everybody, it's Uncle Grumpy. Welcome to Grumpy's Corner. Let's see, I think we're live. Let's see, got to click that. Got it. Let me check. Yep, we are live. All right. Hey, everybody, it's Uncle Grumpy. As you can see, I'm here with Dr. Lawrence Pasternak and the only man with more white hair than me, Matthew Campbell. Matthew, it's good to see you and have you join us. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. We're going to talk about about all the petitions, pros and cons of some of what is going around now online. So, Matthew, would you like to start anywhere?
Yeah, as soon as I finish rolling this joint.
Okay. Lawrence, how about you? You want to pick a spot on where we start this, or you guys just...
My position remains all the above. I'll say it again. My intention is not to brag, but just to kind of try to make it clear that, you know, I'm not trying to be partisan in any of this. I'm trying to be part of all that's good. I was among the authors of the ORCA petitions. I was among the authors of 818, 819. The laundry list of all the personal rights that are found in both 818 and 819, I wrote it out, not to say that, you know, other people didn't have these ideas as well, but hands to the keyboard, my language. And yet I'm not opposing 820, you know, so I have a lot personally invested in 818, 819. I spent months, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on the phone with Jed, 6-hour-long phone calls as we work through language. And I'm not against 820. And I brokered meetings between ORCA and New Approach and national organizations. And throughout all of it, my goal has remained the same: ending the war on drugs. And each of these are valuable instruments in that regard. So it upsets me when I see people saying no to 820. 819 is better. I believe that, I think I had a role in why it's better. But 820 does a lot of good that's very important. There is the risk that our lawmakers will change it or shut it down, just like 788. There is the risk. But they haven't touched patient access in 788, really, They've expanded it in a number of ways. Our legislature has expanded aspects of the patient side of 788. For instance, unlimited homegrown. You can keep everything you grow. Adding ointments. Based on 788, people would still get arrested, charged with a misdemeanor and fined $400. Our legislature changed that, so there is no arrest. There's not supposed to be an arrest. It's just a citation and release. So our lawmakers have done things that are beneficial to 788 on the patient side, while at the same time have tried to raise license fees for business, putting caps in, et cetera, the moratorium. So our lawmakers have targeted businesses. Whether or not 819 or 820 pass, that will likely continue. 819 doesn't stop any of that. 820 does in some ways, but not 819. So, the upside of all of it is no one goes to jail. Parole, probation people are protected. Anybody in jail still gets out. People with past criminal offenses get it expunged. And those things, as I see it, are all just so important. We ought to be saying all the above. That's my view.
Okay. All right. So we've got more people just jumping in. So just to refresh what we're talking about here, we're discussing all three petitions. Lawrence has opened the floor by expressing why he supports all three of them, and also alluded to a little bit the reason why we felt the need to go live right now. And that is because of posts we're seeing from particular people saying 820 kills 420, and the misinformation has to stop. So that's part of why we went live right now. Matthew, are you ready to? I saw you made a post a few minutes ago. I completely agree with the post. I appreciate you tagging me in that one.
You're welcome. And I'm like Lawrence. All three of them need to pass together. mean, that's the best scenario out of any available. I mean, it, 820, I honestly believe 820 is going to pass. I don't think there's going to be any questions at all. There's no concern. I think the turnout is just going to make it. I mean, you all think it's going to be close. I don't think. I think it's going to be a huge win. So being against 820 is not going to help us. It's only going to hurt us. And then when you look at what's in 820 that's not in the others, especially when it comes to, you know, thousands of people going to jail every year and tens of thousands over the last few years, just since this all began, those people are important. The other, what, 3.6 million people of this state are important. 820 takes care of a lot of those people that 819 or 818 does not, which 818 is really medical, but 819 doesn't deal with a lot of things that 820 does. And everything that's in 820 that people are against, whatever it is overridden by 819. So all three of them need to go together. One of them by themselves is a weakness. Whether it's 819 or it's 820, they're both weak by themselves. There's going to be legislation action against all three of them. Even if all three of them pass, there's still going to be legislation against them because it's almost impossible to write out every loophole. That's the whole game, is what are the loopholes to be exploited, whether it's by business, by patients, or by the government. That's the game, the loopholes. Why do we want to leave them available for prejudice over stupid things that obviously a lot of people really don't understand, and I didn't either. I mean, I saw it as, well, this is a big out-of-state corporate people just taking shit over. Well, no, it's not. It's actually not that at all. That's misrepresented. It's almost to the point of a lie. It just means people don't understand. So I think that's the biggest issue. People need to understand who it is that they are.
Okay, Lawrence and I have been talking about who they actually are for the last couple of years. And there's been points of during the last couple of years where we disagreed about this. It sounds like you've come around to thinking maybe similar to what we do about who they are. Who do you think they are? What do you think their objective is? What's their main purpose?
Based on what I've been gathering, is to be able to provide protections, stop people from going to prison, and allow everyone to have access.
So you see their main goal as criminal justice reform.
Yes.
And that's a great thing, right?
Well, that should be a great thing if we really care about people and the Oklahomans and not just the few that give us a few dollars.
So if we just look to 820 for criminal justice reform and look to 819 for full access, we get what we need, right?
As close as we can for the moment. I mean, there's still going to be legislative battles, even if all three pass. There are still loopholes that will have to be addressed through legislation. This is not going to be just because it's constitutional goes doesn't mean the battle's over by any means. I mean, it's just now we have to figure out what the loopholes are to start fighting the new battle again to protect it.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, so let's get into just a little bit of detail. Lawrence, you're the detail guy. Tell us something that's wrong with 820. I mean, we agree it's great for criminal justice, but why is it by itself? Why are we not out here saying, let's just vote for 820? It's got everything we need.
Well, I think the number one objection people are raising to 820 is that it's statutory, right? So because it's statutory, that means that the lawmakers can make any changes to it. Just like with 788, lawmakers can make changes in 788. To say that 820 kills 420 is like saying 788 kills 420, right? It's completely unfair, utterly unfair. We have more security, more guarantees by putting it in the Constitution. I completely agree. I prefer 819 over 820. But I think it's extremely unlikely that our lawmakers are going to override the criminal justice aspects of 820. I think their concern, we've seen it, their concern is business. Their concern is regulating business, stopping the black market, trying to get more fees out of business. That's what we're seeing them doing. We're not seeing them taking away patient rights. So if 820 passes, they will be looking at $300 to $500 million in revenue from 820. I don't think they're going to want to lose that. And there's almost nothing in 820 that speaks to business issues. There's a couple things, but they're fairly small. There's almost nothing in 819 that speaks to business issues. And so our lawmakers will continue to pass laws that shape business. 818 does do things like put into the Constitution that the licensing fee for businesses is $2,500, so they can't change that. But they can create other fees, right? They can create application fees or who knows what else. But the license fee will be set by the Constitution in 818 in particular. If I recall correctly, 818 prohibits caps or moratoriums. I forget the exact language on that. So that's a positive in terms of protecting businesses for 818, but it also might harm businesses too, because the more supply there is, the more competition there is, the fewer businesses that survive. And who's going to survive with increased competition? The economy of scale. So I really fear that increased competition actually might be harmful. Basic economics, right? Basic economics is that prices go down with increased volume, right? The economy of scale. And so I fear that larger businesses, chains, are going to have an advantage to outcompete small businesses, really regardless. But putting a cap, putting a moratorium, I'm not sure if that's going to help, and it might hurt small businesses.
Okay,
It might mean that
hold on a second. Let me veer off a little bit. I want to send that over to Matthew and ask Matthew if he's aware of something. We see a lot of pushback now from some about the moratorium they just put on licensing. I've seen some people complaining about the tiered license bill. Did that one pass too?
yes, it did.
Okay, so I've seen people complaining about the tiered licensing and how it's going to put them out of business, and the moratorium. I'm wondering if you, because you used to come to the Capitol when you could, and so you know how things go down there. Are you aware that half of the community that's been coming down there complaining about it have been there on the same days that the other half of the community has been down there pushing those ideas? Meaning it's been the small mom and pops that have been down there demanding caps. It's not been the big business. Now, I think it benefits the big business, and I don't think they see that, but they can't handle the competition because it's just overwhelming and no one's making enough money. So a lot of businesses push those. Are you aware of that? I'm wondering how many in the community are aware of that?
Not very many. I mean, but you got to realize too, when we look at how many businesses there are, and we look at how many people are actually interactive with the government, it's a very, very small percentage. So even if we get 15 dispensaries that go up there begging for caps, thinking that it provides them protections or provides them a greater investment with their license, we would never know.
Okay, well, I agree. It's certainly not a broad enough group, but then there's also, the lobbyists that are there helping get those bills through that are being paid by other companies that just aren't there. So I agree. Maybe since not that many are actually involved, it's a small number setting the tone. That's how it's always going to be.
I mean, even one person can make a difference in things. I mean, people always say, well, one person can't make a difference. And I'm gonna tell you right now, one person does, has, and will make a difference.
Okay, so Lawrence, let's get back to you being the detail guy here. I wanted to know something wrong with each bill. You've discussed what's wrong with 820 a little bit, what it's lacking, why it needs help, and where it might find that help. What about 819? Why does it need 820? is my question.
The problem with 819 is due to our Supreme Court. We wrote into 819 expungement, but the Supreme Court severed it for a technicality. So otherwise, I think I'd say that 819 didn't need 820. You know,
Right,
820 is a backup,
but it does now,
but
so.
it does now. The other
that's
thing
the
is that
question.
820 resets the licensing fees to $2,500. So 818 does that too. So there's bits of minutia, right, that are different in each case, but I'd say the main weakness of 819 is that it doesn't have expungement.
Okay, so expungement is why 819 needs 820.
That's the main reason, I think, from my perspective.
Okay, all right. So let's look at 818. Does it need 820?
Does 818, well, 818 is just basically new regulatory structure, new licensing structure, and access with a medical card. So 818 doesn't create full access, only 819 and 820 do that.
Okay, well, I understand that. I'm laying out here, you know, why we need to be pushing all of these, or if we need to be pushing all of these. Something else was brought to my attention about 818 that some may find troubling. And I'd like to discuss that, and that has to do with because I'm not sure everybody's aware of that. And that has to do with the doctor license, what will become a required doctor license for doctors to be able to write recommendations, required training for doctors. Tell me about that.
818, this isn't an 819 or 820. In 818, in order for a doctor, or really anyone with prescriptive authority, that includes nurse practitioners and so on, anyone with prescriptive authority will be able to write recommendations with the following qualification: that they could write up to 100 recommendations without a license and without training. But after that 100, they are not allowed to in perpetuity for their professional life. It should have said, I think, per year, but it doesn't say that. Instead, anyone who wants to write a recommendation, and this is going into the Constitution, anyone who wants to write a recommendation in 818 has to get a $500 license and 4 hours of training. And
Okay.
arguably, right, arguably that's fair. If they're medical recommenders, they should have training in, you know, the endocannabinoid system. But it is going into the Constitution, and it means that on the one hand, some doctors might stop writing recommendations because they don't want to go through that. On the other hand, because it expands recommendations out to anyone with prescriptive authority, nurse practitioners could pick up the slack. But the thing is that that's a debatable issue, I think. I don't know if everybody's going to be happy with that aspect of 818.
Okay, well, I can tell you that some doctors that are writing recommendations right now aren't happy about it. You know, I reached out to them last year when we were all working on this, and most of them just laughed. I mean, and I'm curious, who's going to do the training? What course are they going to take? We're putting in the Constitution, they have to take a course. What course? And how long does the state have to come up with this course?
They have 180 days after the transfer of authority from OMA to what 818 calls the Oklahoma State Cannabis Commission.
Okay, so didn't the bill get passed this year to move it to its own agency?
Right.
So how does that, so now it has to start over again if 818 passes?
I don't know if it exactly has to start over again, you know.
It says it has to remove it from the authority and create this new authority.
So there'll be a transition, right? And it might just be on paper, a technical transition, right? The same people couldn't be working there, same offices. It's just a technical transition. I don't think that's a big deal. But, you know, it is a relevant thing that we're putting in the Constitution that doctors will be required to have this training. in order to be able to write recommendations.
Matthew, who do you think is going to provide that training and come up with that course?
Well, I mean, we all know there's a couple, well, one person that would love to see that happen, or a couple of people. The thing is it has to be presented on a CME level. Okay. It's not done that way. Now there, and I don't know, Lawrence may know more because I've kind of lost track, but then there's been several educational type classes or whatever been going on. But how many of these classes are CME certified since we've had the very beginning? Do you know by any chance?
I'll take that as a no.
I'm sorry, I'm just
Yeah,
typing.
because I know for a fact that there's been at least one, and that happened right after everything passed. Me and Melody got together and we put several people, other people together. We flew people in from Florida and different places, and Chip was there as well, and Laura was there, and we had and conducted the very first CME certified training for doctors and nurses. So I know how that goes. I know exactly what it takes. Others don't do that. I mean, it has to be presented by their peers. It can't not be presented by anything other than that. I mean, that's just how it is. This has to be a peer taught acceptance, because that's how the industry works.
Well,
Now,
I have to go ahead.
I'm not opposed to the certifications. I'm not opposed to them getting the knowledge. I don't, because Pfizer's dropped $7 billion into this thing already. So the government is going to be bought off. That's a given, and that's not going to happen maybe by next year. Maybe I would think maybe, because $7 billion, they're not going to have that tied up with just a matter of a few words here and there. So all that's going to change. So there's going to be certification classes that are going to be happening anyway, and they're going to have to pay for them just along with it. Whether it should be in the Constitution is something that I disagree with.
Okay, well, I do want to point out that the only person who is ready to do it the way it's written here is the same person who tried to get in front of the psilocybin bill, accusing me of trying to rig the system for one company. So motives matter.
Cannot provide CME training. He can't provide CME training. He does not have the license to do that.
Well, but it's not in this bill that he would have to.
Can I
Of
stop
course.
on this
Okay.
issue?
True.
And
Sure.
we have about 12
But it's
people
the
in the
same thing with the
audience.
bud tender.
Hold on, Matthew. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Trying to stop on this issue. We have about 12 people in the audience, and I'm just basically just sort of saying to those who are watching, what do you guys want us to discuss? I think that you all know that our standpoint is all the above. There are strengths and weaknesses in all three petitions, and that our viewpoint is that by passing all three, we maximize criminal justice reform, we maximize access, we maximize all the good that cannabis could offer this state. And so people who don't see it that way, you know, we've argued against them. We've argued that we think their perspective is wrong. And you guys have probably seen this on Facebook. That's why you're here. But let me just say to the people who are watching, what do you want us to discuss?
Damon, if you're watching, I just sent you an invite. He asked to join in. There he is.
I mean, the whole idea from the very beginning, even before any proper law or any of this,
Isaac.
30, 40 years ago, it should be about unity, about people working together for the betterment of everyone. but when we have, you know, when people say that 820 is going to kill cannabis, cannabis is around before 420 was ever thought about. It will be long after we are gone. I mean, we're just
Isaac,
stuck in a relentless battle of regulations.
yeah, Isaac Cavanagh says, how do we unite the community for all three? That's exactly what I'm hoping that we could find a way to do. And obviously, we're frustrated with DC and others who keep, you know, DC said that he's going to campaign, he's going to maintain, he's going to manage a campaign to bring 820 down. So I think what I'm hoping is we could talk him out of it. We can basically say to DC.
And he's already, hold on, and he's already reaching out to people for personal stuff that he thinks he can trash us with, okay? So he's gonna make this extremely personal. Let's be very clear about that, all right? He's gonna put out some vile crap, and everybody needs to be ready for that.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to push back when he does. Hey, Damon, how you doing?
Good.
You wanna jump in?
Oh, well, I can. I don't know DC personally. I don't know him at all. I've never had a conversation with him, but I don't think that he realizes the ramifications of his rhetoric. I don't think that he understands that. The divide, the division is what's going to kill us. Stomping and campaigning against 820, all that's going to do is create confusion, division, and that's exactly what they want. They've left it in our hands to confuse and divide ourselves. So I don't think that he realizes what he's doing. I'm assuming that you guys have had one-on-one conversations with this man and told him that, you know, what he's doing is going to be detrimental to the movement.
We have.
We've had those for what, 2 years now?
Yeah.
Explaining that what he's doing is causing problems over and over and over and over again.
Right. Well, he's going to point out, you know, again, our biggest concern is statutory. That's the biggest complaint. That's the same thing in 788 when we had the division that could have started in 15, or excuse me, in 16, was the groups were going to divide. One group felt like they were going to hold out. They were going to get more of a following, register more people to vote, gain more money, more funds to run a constitutional amendment in 2017. And had the groups divided, we wouldn't even have 788 right now. If we do that again, we're gonna, you know, 820 is gonna make it. We know that for sure. It's got the money, it's got the funding. It requires half the amount of signatures. We will be voting on it. And I'm just like, he was mentioning earlier that we know it's gonna pass, and it's gonna pass overwhelmingly, right? We know this to be.
I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, me either. And that's why what he's doing is so dangerous. Yes, they'll get the signatures. Okay. We all know they're going to get signatures.
Right.
At least I hope they do. So it will be on the ballot and we'll be voting on it. But this sort of crap will get some in the community thinking they have to vote against it,
right,
to support 818 and 819. They'll think they have to vote against it. They think they have to talk bad about it. They can't just find a way to do all three, understanding where each one comes up short and how it relies on the other one for more freedom.
Go ahead. Sorry, Lawrence.
If the opposition to 820 turns 820 from a win into a loss, and we don't get 818 and 819, which would be the harder sells in my view, what that basically means is that we will continue to have thousands of people every year criminally charged with cannabis, thousands of people on parole and probation going back to prison. We will have people, close to 100,000 people with criminal charges not getting them expunged. That's what I worry about. What I worry about is the opposition to 820 hurting people.
Right.
I want 819 to pass. Overwhelmingly, that's the one that's most important to me. I want 819 to pass. But I continue to see 820 as a valuable backup and addresses the issue of expungement. And, you know, we're asked here, how do we create unity? And tempers could flare. I'm sure mine flared this morning. I was frustrated with when DC said that he's going to run a campaign against 820, and I wanted to be clear what that implies. But I think that, you know, what we need to do if we really want this community to move forward is to ask ourselves the question, why are we bothering using our time for any of this? You know, I run the religious studies program at Oklahoma State University. I have tons of research to do. I should be doing some of that right now, but I'm doing this. And why? Because justice matters to me.
Justice matters. Yes.
And maybe we should say, shouldn't that be what the focus is for all of us?
It should be, and it never was for some reason. It was the whole reason when I got out on the street corners, when I got out in 14, was I didn't want to be a criminal anymore. I didn't want anybody else to be punished in any kind of way. But we've gone to sleep. We forgot about those people. We forgot about the people that are still locked up. The 4,000 to 6,000 people that are being arrested every year. The article that just came out that I shared with you, Chris, was about the 7 women up in Kay County and I think Noble County or whatever that were prosecuted for marijuana consumption while they were pregnant. One lady in particular out of Ponca City that had her medical card, had the affidavit signed by the doctor that stated that he did recommend her smoke while she was pregnant. Now, I don't know the extent of it, for her child was separated from her, but she was being charged with child neglect. The same thing that I got charged for in 2015 and ultimately sentenced to prison in 2017 was child neglect for having marijuana and marijuana plants in the house with teenage daughters. Child neglect is a form of child abuse. It constitutes carrying a violent charge, violent time, meaning 85%er, that you have to do the 85% of the time, whatever they give you before you get the good boy, parole, et cetera, et cetera. These things are still happening right here in the state of Oklahoma while we enjoy our freedoms and smoke our weed and kumbaya. We have forgotten about those people. Those people are what I've always worried about since day one. And I've said this like a broken record. You cannot see it as beneficial, medical, or anything as long as you're labeled a criminal. It has to be the first thing, the first line of attack is that criminality. And what I was going to allude to what you were saying earlier, where do you get the number 100,000, Lawrence?
Honestly, I don't remember the specific sources. One conversation was through Ryan Kiesel and through the Oklahoma Policy Institute.
Okay.
Where they got a number that was, I don't remember honestly what it was 80-ish thousand, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That they were able to identify as having criminal charges related to cannabis. I don't know how they got that number.
Okay, well, I was gonna say I didn't know where you're pulling that number from, but I pull these numbers out of thin air sometimes, and I've been pretty dead on with my numbers since the beginning of the passage of 788. When we first started, you know, the licenses were being applied for left and right as far as a commercial license, business license, and everybody was saying, well, we're not going to have enough patients, you know what I mean, for all these business licenses that are being applied for. And I kept assuring everybody, once everybody figures out how easy it was or easy it is to get a license, they will start coming on board. Now we're at 380,000 patients. That number is minute. It is small compared to what the greater number is. And I've been saying this, and I know most people probably won't believe me, but if you're out there, if you're in the field and you're dealing with these people on a regular basis and communicating with these people, which I do, because a lot of these people are I consider my friends now, and I ask them and I get honest answers out of them. For every card holder, that's 380,000 patients. There are up to 4 people that live and reside in our state that consume, and that most people won't want to grasp that. But I assure you that number is there for whatever reason. They don't want to get their card, the husband and wife, maybe the wife has a card, the husband has a card, et cetera, et cetera. Those people are left vulnerable to the law. And you may think it's just a little slap on the wrist, but as I just left with the grower that I just talked to maybe 45 minutes ago, okay, and she is female and she is a little naive to the law and everything. She doesn't have a personal consumption license. But that being said, she does occasionally smoke. That being said, she also has flower on her at times that she can show off. Now, if she was to get pulled over, right, and she's got 3 containers, I don't care if it's just 2 containers, it's a division. There's 2 different there. That's possible intent to distribute, which still carries a felony charge in the state of Oklahoma. Intent to distribute is still a felony charge. These are the people that I worry about. For whatever reason that a person doesn't have their personal consumption or protection license is what I really call it. It's just a protection license, right? I want people to start admitting that we all do this. That was the point of getting out on the street corners, was to tell you I smoke, I grow, and I sell weed. And I'm tired of being labeled a criminal. I'm willing to admit these. I'm willing to take any kind of punishment, anything that you're going to throw at me. So in the hopes that I wake up somebody else too. And then they wake up and they say the same thing. You know what? I'm willing to admit that I do. Now, a lot of these growers, processors, and dispensary owners, they're not allowed to smoke on premises. I don't know about the grower and the processor. I'm assuming it's the same way, but at a dispensary, you're not allowed to consume at that dispensary. You're supposed to be 10 foot from the door or 10 foot from the property. A lot of these people do. They won't admit it. They won't admit it. I want people to admit that we're all doing this. When Stitch sits there and says, Chris, to you, or says to us that it's a medical or it's a recreational guised as a medical, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that. What we're doing is we're trying to protect the people, right? It's not our fault that you don't see it as medical. Some people do, but most of us, honestly, I just enjoy smoking. I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. The more of us admit it, the more of us stand up, the realize that we have the numbers on our side. We have over 1.2 million consumers, and that's on a small scale. 1.2 million consumers right here in our state. So sorry, I went on a little rant. I just wanted to throw that out there right quick.
And this is my plea to the community. It's that the priority should be justice.
Number one.
And if we say this is a better approach to justice than that one is, fine, right? You could say this is better than that, fine. But to say that one is not as good as this one, so I'm going to do everything I can to bring it down,
right?
That bothers me.
Well, see, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Lawrence, but in 2014, there were 2 petitions being circulated. I had no idea. I had no idea from, it was, I'm going to say, the last month of petitioning that I found out that Connie Johnson had a recreational hemp medical. I had no idea, because the one group, which I will say the name, Oklahomans for Health, some of the leaders or organizers in that group deterred me from that. You know what I mean? They did not want me running that, so they didn't even want me to know about it. And when I found out about it, I thought, wow, why would they do that? Why would they deter you from another petition, right? That we could have had something big right there. If I'd have been pushing that one too, I think we could have got the same amount of signatures. Right now, with what we got going on, you've got 3 different petitions that's going to be confusing to people. First of all, why do we have another medical? We already got medical, right? That's a confusion in and of itself. And then you have to explain to people why we're doing this, why we're running a constitutional amendment. And then they hear constitutional amendment and they hear statutory. They don't know the difference between the two. The general public could give a shit what all that's about, right? With that being said, 819 and 820 are going to run into an issue. 820 guaranteed is going to make it, regardless if you agree with it or not. It's going to make it to the polls. It's going to pass. And my personal belief, it does not matter. You could write you selling your soul to Satan, and everybody's going to pass this damn recreational bill through. That being said, you deterring people from 820. All it's going to do is it's going to deter people from 819 unwittingly. You're not even going to know that you're deterring people from 819, because you're creating such a division, such a divide. They're going to have conversations with each other. Well, which one was that? Well, I wasn't supposed to sign 819. With that being said, 819 requires almost 90,000 signatures. That's a hard thing to do with no money, right? So this is for any reason, you don't have to support it. You don't have to circulate 820. You don't even have to talk about it. Just leave it alone. They are guaranteed to get their numbers. What you should do is, anybody asks you, say, yes, sign all 3. Yes, vote all 3 through, right? That's how you ensure 819 makes it to the polls. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I want to, well, Lawrence, you look like you had something to say. You want to add to what Damon said there?
I think he and I are very much on the same page through all of it. And I guess just what I wanted to say was that, I woke up this morning, piddled around, eventually checked Facebook, and I saw all this stuff about 820 killing 420 again. And it's like, why can't we all just be positive? Why can't we be honest? Why can't we say our goal is justice? They all advance justice. Some do it in different ways, some do it in better ways, but any of these that pass will be progress with regards to social justice. And why do we have to have a fight over a petition just because it's written by people that aren't us?
Right.
Yeah, that was something I addressed earlier on a comment that, and this was reminded of me by some of the people who helped write 820, was that they spoke to Oklahoma people, just not this community. And we're not the only people in Oklahoma.
No.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to point out about, and then Matthew, I'm going to kick it to you, about those that would say that the Capitol will slow 820 down or they'll freeze it or whatever. Their biggest issue right now is what they see is the hypocrisy of this program. Stitt himself has publicly said we didn't know what we were voting for. So us passing full access, they want, because not only can they add zeros to what they're collecting, but they can feel more morally justified in what they're doing in collecting that money. Okay, because to them it's about how they look to the national party, and nationally, and with both what's his name, Langford saying this on the Senate floor and Stitt saying it in his things, they think they acknowledge that this program is a clusterfuck in their opinion. So calling it rec allows them to collect the money and clears their record of a clusterfuck. They can then brag to the national party about how much money we're collecting on our full access adult program. So we help them by passing this, but of course they can't get it done on their own. We have to do it because of the Republican electorate. They have to go against everything to get reelected. Matthew, I'm going to kick it to you. Go ahead.
Okay, I guess what I want to say is I'm with Lawrence when people start talking about 820 kills 420, that's not progress. That's not helping anyone. And what that does is create division and confusion. You know, I mean, yes, we've got 3 petitions and that can be confusing, but when you complicate it and magnify it with division, then you're right. All of them could lose. And then we've gained nothing, all because people don't understand where the money's coming from. They weren't involved. Well, it was offered. I mean, the cannabis community is maybe what, 20% of the cards held. And then we magnify that based on Damon, and the cannabis community are a very small percentage of influence. I mean, when we look at things like that, Carrie Lawrence is a huge example of that very thing. The cannabis community turned on her like she was a duck in the water of crocodiles. But the cannabis community really does not have as much effect as they think they do. She succeeds 4 years later. I mean, it's just we have to get away from that small-minded thinking that we control things and we have the ability to do things because we're the cannabis community. We're a very small percentage of the 4 million people in this state that 820, 819 affect. So with people going against 820, they're saying that those 4 million people don't matter. Whether they go to jail, whether they go back to jail, whether their families are deprived of their love, don't matter. It's all about us, us, us. We're just a small fish in a big ass damn pond.
Let me
And it's going
chime
to
in
be
on
very
that.
soon. We're going to be a minnow.
Let me chime in on that.
Go
Matthew,
ahead,
that-
Lawrence, and then I want to start another question, but go ahead.
That one of the big complaints against 820 is that they didn't take community input. And I try to convince them, I spoke with Kiesel. I tried to convince him to run some town hall meetings before they filed it. I tried. And he didn't really give me a clear reason not to, other than they just feel confident in their language as written. And I think they made the mistake in that for two reasons. A political mistake, obviously. And then the other one is that there are little nuances that people would have insights into that they might not. And so, you know, I think that they should have. But the fact is that we ran town hall meetings for Orca. Chris, you know, what did we do? About 5 of them?
Well, yeah, 3 to 5. I don't remember exactly. I
Yeah,
don't remember.
we ran, you know, let's say 4 town hall meetings, give or take, close to a year ago for Orca. And, you know, sometimes we had 5 people show up, sometimes we had maybe 25 people show up, but it was in that range, you know? And so it's not like there were hundreds or thousands of people all there participating in the process.
Yeah, and that, well, hold on. And the 5 that showed up at the one where only 5 showed up were also part of the 25 that showed up when the 25 showed up. So it wasn't 30 people. It was some of the same
Right.
coming to all these events. But go ahead, Lawrence.
Right. So I
Sorry.
think 820 really did make a mistake in not going through a town hall meeting process for the reasons that I indicated, that politically it was the right thing to do, and they might have gotten some insights from people that they didn't have from their perspective. I think they made a mistake in that. But it's not as if that process made a huge difference, right, in the Orca language anyhow. And it's not as if there was widespread community involvement in that process. There were a couple people who raised a couple points, and that's valuable, no doubt about it, that's valuable. But it's not as if there's a radical divide between the kind of input that Orca got. Now, I shouldn't say that completely, because Jed obviously had lots of conversations that I wasn't privy to, and he got lots of input from people outside this community. He got lots of input from government agencies and so on and so forth. But that's because he was working on restructuring government agencies. The public process is valuable. The absence of a public process, look at the end result anyhow. What's the words on the paper? Are those words on the paper something that you'd say will cause harm to this program? And when I look at the language in 820, there's a couple little things that I'm not especially happy about. But the bulk, the big picture is there, criminal justice reform.
Okay, so I want to throw a question at all of you, starting with you, Matthew, because I keep hearing, well, we have to unite, and I agree, we have to unite. So, and we can't show fights all the time, but yet we're pointing out, or, you know, I'm happy to point out the problem here is DC's negative post today that's brought us to doing this. So how are we supposed to react? What should we do? What should everybody else do when they see 420 or 820 kills 420? What do we do? Starting with
really,
you.
yeah, and worse than that, when a member of this community starts telling us that he's going to actively try to kill 820.
Yeah, Matthew, starting with you. How do we not damage our own movement? And is doing nothing going to damage the movement even more than if we do something?
Well, of course. I mean, and the effect is always going to be in our response. How we respond is what is most important, because and it's easy to make things personal. It is. I mean, because it's being presented in that way, and we perceive that being personal because we take on the responsibilities of a lot of people that we feel to be responsible for. And so we take those attacks on those people kind of personal. And it's difficult to not say, well, you're this, you're that, and because of this and that. And I get it. I mean, I fall into the same trap just like everyone else. We're human. I think the biggest issue, the biggest way is to not let it be personal, not allow the buttons to be pushed and to be reactors, but to be proactive in the information that is given. It's not saying they're wrong. I'm not going to say he's wrong, because that would be wrong of me to say. He has his options and choices and consequences that fall from that. My
Yeah.
post was, it was the same. I mean, you know, if you're against 820, and I'm like Lawrence, if you're against 820, then you're against thousands of people's freedom. You are wanting those thousands of people to remain condemned. All because you don't understand where the money comes from. You don't understand what the money does. You don't understand the history. You're blindsided by big out-of-state corporate greed, and that's not what it is. So we just have to be careful in what we respond, and respond with the facts of what it is, and that's simply what it is.
And Isaac's suggestion to us is we just ignore it. We don't respond to DC when they, or others when they put up
Well,
these things.
I would have, if I was talking to Isaac, I'd have to tell him that we just can't ignore it. We have to address it. You know, the petitioning process, there's not going to be too many more of these left. You know what I mean? There's really not. It's always going to be big money from here on out. This is probably the last, the 818 and 819 being grassroots as it can be. There's not going to be, with them constantly attacking the petitioning process, which I'm sure Lawrence, Chris, you know about this too. I'm sure you guys all know it. They've already attacked it on every level that they can. If they could completely do away with it, I don't know. It's a petitioning process. Is that written into our Constitution? Because I was always told that it was constitutionally protected. Now, I
Yeah,
don't
let
know
me-
if it's written.
Yeah, let me explain.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
It is in the Constitution, and their plan is to amend the Constitution to stop grassroots campaigns.
Now, my
And
understanding.
hold
wouldn't they
on,
have-
Damon, hold
Go
on.
ahead.
And to do that, that means they have to pass they all have to sign this thing to put it on the ballot. We have to vote for it. That's the only way it's protected, is we have to vote for it. But
Mhm.
then we have to look at, again, who's against us, and can we carry that vote? But go ahead.
Oh,
To your
you just
point.
answered my question right there, Chris. I mean, can they just, they obviously couldn't. They had to put it to the vote. Now, why would we vote our petitioning process away? Why would we, the people, do that?
Well,
And the reason why is they're going to try to convince us that the current system gets exploited by out-of-state interests.
Okay.
Yeah,
Liberal
it'll be for
out-of-state
our,
interests.
it'll be for,
why
that's a
you-
good one, Lawrence. It'll be for our own best interest that we
Yeah.
stop the initiative petition process, so we can stop people like New Approach.
Medicaid expansion and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more than just cannabis, of course.
Right.
It's
No.
much more than cannabis.
Exactly.
But we know
I
what's
agree
driving it.
completely.
It's the cannabis. It's the cannabis. It's us getting out on the streets in 2014 and shocking the state, you know, registering 42,000 newly registered voters, you know what I mean? And so forth. You know what I mean? We took and did something, we used a tool, and it wasn't bought and paid for, and they're scared.
Yep.
Now,
Well,
with that
let
being,
me, hold on, Isaac. Let me address it, or I'm sorry, Damon.
okay,
For years, I've gotten you two, your names.
I know a lot of people do,
backwards.
Chris.
I don't know why. I guess because I met you both the same day.
We're always
maybe. I
together
don't know.
too, so
It was like
Yeah,
Bert and
and-
Ernie.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's Bert and Ernie.
Only we don't sleep in the same beds.
Yeah, now I don't even remember what my damn point was. See what you did?
Pothead.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll come
All
back.
right, you were saying. See, I got you too, Lawrence. We can count on you. I know it. You're not going to help us out here. What was
I'm
my
sorry,
point?
I'm looking at messages and
Wow, we got Lawrence off guard too. It's all four of us are a bunch of potheads. What's
Well,
going on here?
We were
So
talking about.
I think I got three issues at the end of the day by thinking of things is the 820 kills 420, the doctor CME, and then of course this bud tender certification thing that comes in effect in a year and a half.
Mhm.
The third party certification. See, all of these things, those are the things that concern me the most.
Good
Okay,
concern.
well, where are we going from here?
Oh, where we can go back to what we were originally talking about that you forgot and I forgot, but we were talking about the constitutional amendment on the petitioning side of it, how they can attack this and basically tell us it's for our own You know what I mean?
I
Our own
look, I
benefit.
do want to
Right.
point out that the DC, his argument about how that's statutory, how
Mhm.
820 statutory and 818 and 819 are constitutional. And what was that? The beginning of 2020, or was it the beginning of 2019? No, it was 2020. When 806 rolled out, his issue with that, everybody's issue was it's going in the Constitution. And then it can't be changed. We're going to be stuck with it.
Right.
That was his argument then. So back to our original question to everybody. How do we deal with this? Lawrence, you and Matthew and Isaac on here think that perhaps we should just ignore it and overwhelm them with truth, where, and I'm just trying to summarize here, where Damon and I, because I think we're in agreement here, think that this crap has to be called out. And if it's just one or two people doing this, it needs to be called out.
Mhm.
But it frustrates me because it just seems like you could be upset about the way in which New Approach brought 820 to the ballot. You could be upset, right, about it, it not being grassroots enough. I understand all of that, but still look at the words on the page and say, if that became law, wouldn't that help people? And then you could say, well, how do we know any of it's going to become law? Our lawmakers might block it. I grant that that's true, but the odds are very low. I think that they would block the positives for people. They might tinker with business. And so I think that the position is so reasonable to say that regardless of the things we don't like about 820, it's still social progress. And so just say all the above. And so that's what I've been trying to convince when I get into it with DC and others. I've been making this argument, right, again and again. And some people have changed their minds because of it. So, that's part of the mission here, to get people to get the noise out of their head and refocus upon the issue. This is about ending the war on drugs. This is about ending criminalization. This is
Right.
about personal liberty.
It's the first and foremost.
And so if somebody, digs in his heels and says, no, 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 regardless, I'm sticking to my guns and I'm saying no to 820. What do we do? Right? Maybe he'll just marginalize himself. Maybe enough people will realize that his concerns, there's something, wrong in his priorities.
Has anybody debated him? Has anybody sat down and talked with him? That's what I want to know.
I tried over the phone. I
Okay. I'm just
tried.
curious. I'm just
Yeah.
curious because the biggest thing is like in most people don't know this, like in 15, when we started the group Green the Vote, hence the name Green the Vote, we were registering people for the upcoming petition in the fall that Oklahomans for Health was supposed to run. They made a last minute decision not to run that petition. They were going to hold out a little bit longer, raise more funds, start it and roll out a petition in 2016, another constitutional amendment. Our group decided on a haste, last minute decision. You know what I mean? I always felt like every year you had to stay in front of their face. You have to stay in front of their face. If not, they will go back to sleep. The problem in 16 that we ran into were groups were going to divide. Some of it was for general, it was a genuine concern of it being a statutory, you know what I mean? And they can completely rip it apart and tear it apart. Me, I came up from a point of view, I looked at it as like we were building a foundation which other people could stand. That when we got 788 to the ballot and passed it, that if they were to try to come in and change it and disrupt any of it, that we would have built up enough community, again, that foundation which other people could stand on, they would say no, step back. And then that would encourage the people to band again together and do a constitutional amendment or whatever. People wanted to divide. When you start to divide, again, if we would have divided in 2016, we would not have 788. And that took a talk. That took a talk of saying, hey, this is why we're doing this now. It didn't deter everybody from running their mouth and smashing or trying to quash what we were doing. It did. It created a divide, enough divide that we didn't get the signature count. Had we had the rest of the people from Oklahomans for Health helping us and they hadn't been deterred, right? Some people were, I'll bring this up too, some people were upset because they felt like that Frank was doing using the marijuana as a Trojan horse to sneak in the other petition, which he was, which it was perfect. It all aligned right. It was a statutory law. It only required, I think, 60. I don't know. I can't remember. It was a doable number because we had done it the 2 prior years. We got that signature count. We would have extended that petitioning process to a whole year, but that divide kept that from happening. We're going to run into that in 2018 again. Excuse me, in 2022. 2018, we ran into this. I know I'm rambling on here, but I think it's very important that most people understand this. In 2018, when it was decided to run 2 petitions, okay, the division was going to be huge. How we kept that from happening is we told everybody, you have to support 788. You have to encourage people to get to the polls and sign it, or excuse me, vote it through. We have to educate the people. Right now, you're running 3 petitions, all confusing. Right now, to us, it makes all sense. We understand it all, but the general public, which is what you say is around 80%, Lawrence, they're not going to know shit. They don't know nothing, right? They're going to be ignorant. They're going to be confused. So when they get to the polls, if there's any kind of confusion, it's going to show up in the numbers. This is why you have to say yes to everything. Yes to everything. So when they get in there, they're just going to yes, 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 right?
Yeah,
All the
I
details
think
aren't going to matter.
I really think strategically saying all the above will help 818 and 819, right? No division, it's all good. Vote for them all. Otherwise, people aren't going to remember. They're going to, they're going to squabble. Some people will go for one, some people will go for another, and that'll split the vote.
Yes.
And I really think that the best chances for progress are all the above. I wanted to add something also. In 788, the language in 788 was that those who could write recommendations were Oklahoma board certified physicians. That was a language in 788. And what that meant in that language was you had to have a national board certification. That's the way it was treated when 788 passed. If that was in the Constitution, we might have been stuck with that situation. But our lawmakers fixed it for us. Our lawmakers went in and fixed that language so that any medical doctor, any MD or DO can write recommendations. You didn't need to have a national board certification. What did all lawmakers do to 788 with regards to the patient side of the issue? They fixed a barrier to access. And our lawmakers in 2022, 2023 may not share that perspective that we had from them in 2018, 2019.
Right.
But the risk with a constitutional amendment is that there is a problem in the language that can't be fixed. And, we were careful, but we're only human.
Oh, no, there's always going to be flaws in all these, I never had insight. I never provided insight. I've kind of stepped away and just trying to live my life. But I will say this.
Damon, you've broken up.
You're there now.
Say this, you went silent.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting a telephone call. I was going to say was the sin tax, what I call a sin tax, any excise tax on the top of the regular tax is a sin. They should have allotted this money to marijuana research and development right here in our state. I believe that we could have took this thing so far. People want to say that we could be the next Colorado, California, whatever. Hell, we could be the next Israel too, and surpass Israel. We could provide so much money right here in the state. Now they're going to say that I guess because on a federal level, we're not allowed to, I don't know, can we put it in scientists' hands? Can we put it in some doctors' hands? They can have some clinical trials. Actually understand how this plant works with the human body. We could do that right here. We have the money, the funding for it, but no, marijuana has to pay for everything else. It's got to pay for this. Got to pay for this. Everybody's got to get their little payoff. And I just don't think that it needs to be. That just like in 14, when people were telling me on the streets, it will never happen here. I assure you, I knew in my heart it could happen. You know what I mean? And I could tell you the reasons why, but I don't need to explain how I know. I just knew that everybody, had they known at one single time in the state of Oklahoma, believe it or not, we could have had recreational marijuana here. That's how many people are still here. You got people that own businesses in this industry that are so closeted, they don't want anybody to know. Here's another one on Isaac's route that he runs, a little store in Hugo. And I'm not going to say the store, but they have a judge that comes there because her place is up out of the way, and he doesn't want to be seen by anybody else. He's a local judge there in Hugo, and he won't go shop at any other dispensary, only hers, and it's because it's out of the way. The stigma's still there, right? These people, we outnumber them. We could write anything we want in these petitions. We could have and we should have, but we don't. With that being said, they're always going to be flawed. They're not going to be perfect. If we would have got what we had in 2018, holy shit. And in 15, holy shit. And in 14, they were constitutional amendments. They would be set in gold.
Hold on, Damon. Hold on, Damon. I need to push back a little bit.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
understand that how you feel about this, and since the very first time I met you, and I remember it, you felt that way. I remember you saying something similar that day, and me giving pushback to you that day, saying the state wasn't ready for that.
The state, that's the state. The
Right,
people,
right.
The
Well,
people were ready.
but now the problem, there's been a time since then when I would have agreed with you, even so much as a year, 2 years ago. I might have thought the same way. I might have been coming to those same conclusions. But now with the broader culture war going on, we've lost an enormous amount of ground. And we're not understanding the militant way of those that are winning. And so I don't think that we could write anything and get it passed now. I don't think 788 would pass if it was on the ballot tomorrow. If one of these petitions or more than one of these petitions pass, I don't believe it's going to be by any more than, it's going to be under 55%. And it's going to be because of the broader culture war. And to back that up, I'll tell you this, the reality of the petitions backs up exactly what I'm saying. Why are we doing petitions? Why was 788 done through the people? Don't the legislators work for the people? Didn't the people get out and vote for these legislators who refuse to do this? So we will have people go to the ballot and they will vote yes on these cannabis petitions. And then they'll vote their favorite Republican back into office.
Right.
And that's the reason we have to do these petitions. Lawrence, you want to jump in here? I'd like to get your take on what I just said. You're muted. Yeah. Your head's big and you're muted.
Got it. I'm sitting forward closer to the camera.
Yeah, I can live with the big head, but we got to hear you.
The election is 5 months away, right? And so, you know, what the state landscape and the national landscape are now could be different in 5 months. And one of the turning points might be that the Democrats in the US Senate plan to introduce legalization. The odds are it's going to fail because the Republicans will filibuster it, right? But, you know, maybe there's a slim chance it'll pass. If it passes, then I think our legalization efforts will be easy to move forward, right? Because then we're basically saying, if federal government allows it, then we're going to, you know, and the federal government would basically be, we'll allow it, it's up to the state. And then, you know, it'll be easy to get 819 and 820 across the finish line, I think, if that happens. But that's a huge if. And I think the odds are is that the Republicans are going to filibuster it in the Senate. It's not going to pass. But then we'll be kind of in the wake of that, right? Where the people of Oklahoma will be seeing how the federal government is stopping something that almost all the country wants, you know, and maybe, you know, despite the culture war issue, because, you know, it's often said that one of the things that unites everybody across the spectrum is cannabis, right? You know, 78% national approval for legalization, numbers like this. And the numbers are weaker in Oklahoma because of all the illegal grows and the scandals related to that and the negativity, right, in the rural areas. But that could be counterbalanced. And one of the arguments that could be pushed is full access helps clean everything up.
Okay, I'll push back on this factor. And look, I'm even leaning forward, just like you did. Anyway, having a little fun. What you're saying is that the cannabis issue will be more important this electoral season than the abortion issue.
I'm not saying
What
that.
okay, well, for what you're hoping for, you're right, you're not saying that. For what you're hoping for, more what Damon is saying though, for this larger cannabis revolution to happen, it has to be larger than the abortion issue. Because again, some of the same people that are going to vote yes on these petitions are going to vote for Stitt because they want to stop all abortions. And that issue, yes, you're right. And I agree. Cannabis unites unites people like nothing I've ever seen in my 55 years. Abortion divides people like nothing I've ever seen in my 55 years. So I'm concerned that we're losing the culture war because of our own people. Because people will vote yes on a petition that the people had to do against the will of the legislators and vote for those legislators at the same time. In overwhelming numbers, that
So
will happen.
here's a question. Will James Langford do TV spots against 818, 819, 820?
Yes, he will be dressed up like Howdy Doody when he does it.
I don't know. We'll wait and see. I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe he'll say this is what Chris is imagining. What he'll say is good. At least we now get honesty.
If he says
So-
nothing, if he says nothing publicly, it'll be because of that.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm wrong, he'll come out against it and you'll see those commercials in the
Yeah.
Howdy Doody suit, like Damon says.
Doesn't he look like how he looks like a blend of Howdy Doody and Lurch? Kind of like,
So,
I don't know.
so has
I think
anyone
of
heard
David
of,
Lynch.
has
David
anyone
Lynch.
heard of Arena Pharmaceuticals? Do y'all know who they are?
Uh-huh.
Okay, Arena Pharmaceuticals is a cannabis research facility. They were just purchased by Pfizer for $7 billion.
Oh shit.
So I don't think that the Republicans are going to resist that. They're going to take control of it and use it.
Yeah, but what that could mean is they still keep cannabis per se illegal, but they legalize cannabinoid drugs.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Because
And
I mean,
how
we
will
already
they,
know
hold on, and
there's
how will
tons
they
of
get,
patents already.
and how will they maintain the power to pass laws to do that, Matthew? They'll do it because the same people, as Damon wants to project, and I think we can agree. In fact, the Loft report, the government Loft report says something similar about 4 people for every card because of the amount that is sold versus the number of cards. So I don't even remember where I was going with that. There I go again. Oh,
Okay.
I don't see enough. The people that have to stop that from happening, okay, are going to be overwhelmingly pro-life, and they're going to vote for more Republicans, which is going to make it possible for those companies to work with legislators to make us criminals again and to only legalize particular cannabinoids, or only legalize it through Pfizer, whatever, through something they come up with in the lab. Okay, that's going to happen because the overwhelming number of people are cannabis users. We're all saying that here, are going to put them in power. The culture war, the abortion issue, just totally overshadows cannabis. It just makes it almost invisible. We're such a minor thing compared to that issue. And that issue is going to drive everything this legislative session, making all these terrible nightmare things we're worried about possible, because the same people will remain in power. People need to understand 788 was not done through the legislator. They don't seem to grasp that.
Right.
Isaac talked the other day. I don't remember if it was online or in one of our private conversations. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying it, but he talked about going into these stores and they don't even understand how 788 happened. They think the legislators did it. Those people are going to go vote for Republicans who are going to make what your fears are, Matthew, possible. And Damon, what your dream is, they're going to make it impossible.
Mhm.
Because you have to overshadow this huge culture war. And it is nothing like I've ever seen in my 55 years. And this November, I think, is going to make or break some type of civil strife
Some civil,
I agree.
unrest.
beyond what January 6th even thought about.
I agree.
Lawrence, you want to throw me a rope and dig me out of this hole?
I was thinking about, basically saying maybe this is enough discussion for today and I need to go eat lunch and I have some work I got to do.
All right. See, he doesn't even want to go down the rabbit hole. And that's why we're going to continue to have the problems we have, because everybody in this community reacts just like Lawrence. Okay. In
They're
this
hungry?
aspect, they're ready. No,
Angry.
you can go ahead and eat. We'll let you go. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep
yeah.
talking.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
this is important. You can log off. Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate your time. And I'll talk to you in a little while, I'm sure.
I don't know.
All right. Dude.
All right. And I'm not trying to call Lawrence out here, but I want to say that's exactly why Stitt wins.
Well, I was going to say, right now, is there somebody that you would like to invite or have them come on? I mean, maybe somebody can reach out to DC and he can come on here. We can have a discussion with him.
That would be fine with me. I put the
My thing
link.
is not even to bash him, y'all. It's not. It's about
Right.
it's a peaceful debate. You know what I mean? We're
Well,
not
look,
going
if
to
he'll
sit here and
come on
argue with each
here,
other.
Damon, if he'll come on here, I'll just play moderator and throw questions back and forth to you guys and let you guys
And
work it
I think
out.
I think if we can get our concerns across to each other, you know what I mean, and we could understand. Again, it's just in 2016, we had those same talks. Isaac will tell you, we had those same talks, man. What you're going to do is you're going to create a bigger problem, and 819 won't make it to the ballot, and then that means that only 820 makes it to the ballot, right? The thing that you fear is going to be the only thing going to be on there that they can vote on. And I assure you, again, just as you talk about these people voting Republicans and fucking up, they are going to vote that through. Recreational marijuana is coming. If 820 is the only one on the ballot, then that's the only one we're going to get, right? I know. I see you agree with me. If we create such a divide, and that confusion's already there. The confusion's already there in the general public. They don't understand. They didn't understand why we were doing what we were doing. And like you said, Isaac talking about this in dispensaries, I've talked to processors, growers. They have no idea in 2014 that a petition was being ran. They had no idea that there was a petition ran in 2015. They have no idea that there was one ran in 16. They thought the ones that they were signing in 2018 was 788. And that's what it was. Some people think it was the lawmakers that done it for us. They have no idea. They're totally ignorant to any of this. What you're going to do through the confusion is already existing. Now you're going to create a divide to where people are going to be like, well, is it 819, 820 that I'm not supposed to vote on? You know, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't even think we'll get to the polls. The division is going to create so much a divide that 819 will not get its numbers. Right. And now you can't afford to do what we did before, where we just gave those petitions out to everybody. Now they have made it, they're really tighten the reins on the petitioning process. You know, it used to be 20 signatures to a back page. Now it's only 10, right? And the staple has to be in a certain spot every single time, right? Now you got only 10 signatures. That means double the amount of printing. That costs more money to do printing, right? And then you've got now it has to be on a certain pound weight, which was 70 pound, but apparently there's a shortage, so they've allowed 60 pound weight on 818 and 819 and 820, right? This is going to go through a machine that's going to automatically kick out duplicates, it's going to automatically kick out anybody that isn't registered, right? As before, when we handed them in, they had people looking over them. I think they scrutinized maybe up to 10%. I don't know what their number is, but they didn't scrutinize every single name. There were duplicates. Let's be honest. I've heard people saying, "Oh, I signed it 3 times already." You know what I mean? You can't, right? But they were doing. So the numbers are going to be very crucial. If they don't turn in upwards of 250,000 or more, they're not going to make it, because that again, it's going to be it's going to be ran through a scanner, and it's going to kick. It's going to kick if it isn't legible. Trust me, they've done their homework on this. They've got the stuff to do this. Am I wrong on this?
Nope.
No, you're right. That's how it's being
Right.
done. I signed 820. I've only signed that one so far because that's the only one I've come across so far. I'll
Okay.
sign them all 3 to make that clear publicly. Okay. But it was a different process, and it was somewhat confusing to me for a minute because I was used to the way we did it in 2018. If you remember, in 2018, while we were promoting 788 and registering people to vote, we started there towards the end. We started pushing 786 and 787, or was it 796 and 797? That was it.
Yeah.
Bills written by, or constitutional amendments, one medical, one recreational, written by Durbin for Green the Vote. You can go back and look at them. I'm sure they're out there. They're terrible.
Yeah.
But at the time, we didn't know any better. I mean, they're
Right.
horrendous. But again, we didn't know any better at the time. But we used those as tools. And it was those that helped, I believe, get
Without a doubt.
788 to pass, because we had
Without a
so
doubt.
much to do that it allowed us all to be in the public eye almost 24/7.
You had to.
We always had something we had to do. It was not just register people to vote. It was register people to vote, get them to sign both these petitions, make sure they understand 788, make sure they have a ride to the polls. These were all the things we were doing. And it worked together, and that's why 788 passed.
Again, going back to the division over the years, again, I wasn't even aware of in 14, while strongly pushing that petition, that there was another petition that was being circulated, right? I had no idea. And I was heavily involved in this, right? In 2015, if we hadn't done, look, I felt it was so important for us to get out on the street and register people to vote. It to stay active. I was staying active before Oklahomans for Health had even made their announcement in 2015 that they would be running a petition. I felt like you had to. Every year, these people are going to go back to sleep. They're going to go back to sleep, right? They're like, in 14, I thought nobody's going to get back out in 15 because they was like, oh, Oklahomans don't want it. Why should we even try? That was everybody that was coming up and signing a petition. Well, I'll sign it, but it'll never happen here. This is the Bible Belt, you know? And 15, same thing. And in 16, it was the same thing. I felt like in 16, if the groups didn't help each other and unite for this one cause, right? We had the common goal. It didn't matter that in 14, I had no idea. Running that petition, it wasn't until people were coming up to me and said, Damon, did you read this piece of trash? I'm like, no, I didn't. I just knew it had marijuana's name on it, and I was willing to support it. I was naive to all that. So in 15, when we did write that petition, I tried to have insight on things, but you know, they were like, it's not gonna work, Damon. You can't put expungements in there. You can't do this. You can't do that. As I always felt like we could write what we want in them. You know what I mean? That the people were hungry. They were starving. So going into 16 with 788, again, half the groups were against it because it was a statutory law, and knowing that it could be picked apart and fucked with. And that's why we're here right now, right? Having this discussion today is because 788 has been picked apart and we have to run something new. Now, if the groups would have separated and we would have bashed 788, it would have never got the signatures that it needed to get to the ballot. And I'm sorry, even at 67,000 signatures, if the groups weren't helping each other and creating more of a divide, it would have never happened. Now we're running into the same issue right now where you're at a unique time. Our 788, our program is being attacked. You've got 3 petitions on the plate here that are going to be circulating. You know what I mean? It's a unique time to where we can use it as a tool again, right? To get what we want. But we're never going to get that if we bash each other and trash each other, right? If you want to bash and trash, at least wait until the numbers are collected, the signatures there, right? Then before the polls, hopefully you get the word out enough to whatever. But then again, I say you're going to create another confusion again at the polls to where people aren't going to know. If they've got it embedded in their head and they heard from their friends it was 820 and maybe it was 819, they don't know. Like, I just want people to have no confusion when they make it. I want them to stay ignorant. I'm sorry, that doesn't sound right, but I want the general public to stay ignorant. So when they get in there, they just check yes, yes, and yes. So,
Matthew, let me ask you a question. You know a little bit about the process. What do you think the likelihood is of 819 and 818 getting on the ballot? I think we all agree 820 is going to get their signatures. So we can set that aside for now. What do you think the likelihood is of Orca getting what we would probably assume needs to be at least 250,000 signatures on each one? I think I heard Isaac say their goal is 300,000. That's a good number.
yeah.
So what's the likelihood of it, do you think? And if they get the signatures, what's the likelihood of it getting on the ballot this year? Because we're running into a deadline. And I know some people have said, well, as long as it's done 30 days before the election. Well, no, that's not true. It's got to be done considerably sooner. That's why I believe the 820 people plan on being done by the middle of this month.
Yeah.
I could be off a little on that, but
No,
I think
no, they've been pushing hard enough. They're paying $21 to $26 an hour. They've got a lot of money. There's a lot of people that are willing to make quick cash like that.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not. You're right. There's no issues there. I think trying to get 300,000 signatures when our petitions are 90% held in dispensaries, it's kind of slim.
we would need every single or darn near every single card holder to go into dispensary in the next 30 days.
We can't
and
rely
sign a
on them.
petition.
We can't rely
No,
on that. There's
we
not
have-
enough of them.
Right.
818, 819, not necessarily 818, but it is important too. But both of them are going to have to be able to pull outside of the cannabis community. The cannabis community is, even if we just open it all the way up to every single card hold member, we're still only 10% of the base.
Right.
And only a third of this is something to keep in mind. I believe it's a third of the people eligible to vote in the state vote.
Right.
And that number is less than the primaries. Like this month, there's a primary at the end of this month that's going to determine who everybody else gets to vote for in November. And what some people don't realize, and they need to look into this, in their own district, there may not even be a race in November. The primary, it may just be two Republicans who filed to run for that seat. So they'll have a primary and then it's done for 2 years. So 60% or 70% of the seat changes that are possible are made during the primaries. The general makes a very small dent. This is why the primaries are so important. And that's where the lowest participation is. And Oklahoma is like, I think we're a third at the bottom of voter participation.
Well, we're quick to complain.
We've got plenty of that. Just a little distraction here. I want to explain to everybody who doesn't know. Matthew, you may even remember this day. Back in 2018, we were all at the Capitol for these Weed Wednesdays, weekly Weed Wednesdays, the joint session where we talked to the legislators about, the program and how it needed to be laid out, while we tried to get them to have a special session, tried to get them to not delay for 8 months and then regulate our behavior, which is what they did. But during that time, one of the days we walked out, I looked back and this was hanging over the Capitol. Let me move out of the way. That's the Capitol building. And that is an outhouse. And that was hanging over the Capitol. I don't know if you remember. That was hanging over the Capitol for most of the day and by a big crane. And I still can't figure out why it was. It's like, well, was there a guy stuck on the top that needed to use the bathroom and there wasn't one? Or I'm confused as to why they would move pick an outhouse up off the ground. I mean, I see for, you know, if they're leaving or whatever, they gotta lift stuff off the ground to be safe, fine. But to then place it directly over the Capitol. I gotta know what was going on there. I just gotta know. But anyway, I turned around and took a picture and.
Well, maybe you need
here
to
it
talk
is.
to the
So,
crane operator. You should have talked to the crane operator that day. Maybe it was just something that he felt was funny.
I think
Yeah.
it's the universe just providing meme situations.
Lawrence is coming back.
Good. I
Well-
put in there on the chat if somebody, yeah, okay, they just tagged Daryl, DC. So I think you guys really need to hash this out. You really need to talk about it. That's the biggest thing. And again, in 15, we sat down, we talked with Frank, you know what I mean? And in 16, we had those talks again. We were going to be running 2 petitions. We had to let everybody know we're not here to confuse everybody and deter people from voting for 788. 788 was extremely important to me, right? But we had these petitions going on. Same thing right now. I feel like we're going to waste all our time, all our energy focusing on these 3 petitions the whole time. We still got a fucking problem on our hands. What if all 3 of them don't make it? What if all 3 of them don't fucking make it? We're still fucked, right? Because we're distracted. We're fighting with each other. That's why it's imperative that we all come together. Come together. I don't care, man. We can agree to disagree, but we have to make sure and ensure that all 3 make it to the ballot and that all 3 pass.
Okay,
Simple as that.
Krista has just sent me a message telling me that my video is set to only be able to be viewed by my friends. I was not aware of that. I always post them to be in the general public. Lawrence, it's been so long since we've done lives. You remember we had this problem last year?
Yeah.
And so let me go on. Let me see if I can fix this.
Okay. Because I really think you guys need to talk it out. I mean, and just address it and see what his concerns are, and then give our rebuttals. And you know, again, communication is key. I used to have the same thing. I used to have a hang up about anybody that came new into this, that I felt like they weren't genuine. I felt like that they weren't, everybody was here to steer it in the wrong direction. I felt as strong about it. You know what I mean? Marijuana is going to change the world, y'all. Definitely going to change the world. And we're still thinking small. I want it to the dinner plate. I want to fast track all the bullshit about medical, all the bullshit about recreational, and put this straight to the fucking dinner plate where it needs to be.
Okay, I was unaware it was set. In fact, when I do it on the computer, and again, we had this problem last year. When I do it on the computer and I set this up, it says it's going to be viewable to the public. But then what I need to go back and do is check it, because when I check on again, it has somehow changed to only be viewed by my friends. I was unaware of that, or people on my friends list. So it's now viewable by the public. Maybe that's why DC isn't here. I don't know. Maybe that's why other people aren't here. I'm not sure. Krista just was nice enough to point out that was an issue. So that has been fixed. Maybe we will get some more people joining us. Lawrence, how was lunch?
It was all right. My wife brought some flatbread pizza back from Panera for me. So I had some flatbread pizza and a chocolate croissant.
I was about to ask about your dessert. I heard you ordering dessert earlier, so I wanted to see what you got.
If I could interject based on what was just being said, if somebody doesn't like one of the other petitions in this community, like there's reasons to not like 818. I'm not sure if there's any reason to not like 819. There's reasons to not like 820. Don't say that you're going to do everything you can to stop it. Don't say that you're going to run a campaign to kill it. You know, voice your objections, but actively trying to undermine any of these has negative consequences for all of these. And you know, my hope with Daryl is that maybe we can convince him that 820 is valuable. 819 is better, but 820 is valuable. If we can't convince him of that, then maybe just ask him to just not try to spur opposition to 820, because for the reasons that we've all been discussing. You know, that as I see it, is the goal of the conversation with him. I phoned him, I've tried a few times, and the character of the conversation typically is, I can't finish the sentence. And so
What? So, and I guess his big deal is that it's out of state corporate money and they didn't open it up to the public. So
Yeah.
so a new approach, where do they get their money from? Who funds them?
I can tell you, they overwhelmingly, they get their money from an organization called the Van American Foundation. The Van American Foundation was started decades ago by a gay man who had inherited a lot of money to try to help people with AIDS, bring AIDS awareness, provide medical access for the gay community and so on. And as that got more adequately managed, then he started to donate monies to end cannabis prohibition. And the money primarily to the Van American Foundation, and then there are a couple other similar, let's say, call them left-leaning philanthropic organizations. So out of the millions and millions of dollars that they've accrued, I would say probably 90% of them are coming from very wealthy, left-leaning philanthropic groups. And they do get money from industry as well, right? So they might get a check for $2 million or $3 million this year from Van American, and they might get a check for $50,000, let's say, from Tilray or who knows who, right? Because, you know, they're in meetings, they're in conversations, and they're looking for all the monies they can get. That doesn't mean that Tilray is running the show. And the proof is in the pudding. Just look at the language. Look at the language and ask yourself whether or not there's anything in there that's slanted towards big cannabis. Why are we getting unlimited home grow if it was going to be a corporate bill?
Right.
Why is it that it's resetting the licensing fees to $2,500 if it's a corporate bill?
Right.
You're muted, Chris.
Yeah, it doesn't have the mechanics to be a corporate grab. Now, somebody, I'm not going to say who, but in another conversation offline I had with somebody, what they said was that, but that's what they do everywhere. That's
I
what New
think what I was
Approach
getting
does.
at is that the money that is behind this, the organizations that are funding this are not corporate, greedy, governmental agencies. So the foundation of the organization being tainted is not truth. I mean, it is an organization that's doing good things for everybody in the nation to help quality of life, decriminalization. Why would anybody want to be against something like that?
I think the biggest argument is going to be that it's a statutory, so that's why they think it's corporate. You know what I mean? That they've left it up to the lawmakers. They got the lobbyists. they're all,
788 was statutory, and
I
I damn
know.
sure promise you that wasn't corporate.
No, for sure. I know. That's what I'm saying. But again, that's why we need him to come on here. I mean, if he's our biggest concern as far as creating opposition against 820 and again creating a divide and further confusion, you know, he needs to understand this where we're coming from. I don't know. I'm not in discussions with the guys.
A soap company as well, Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps, donates a lot of money.
Mhm.
And then there's another one, I'm looking at Open Secrets, called Good Ventures. They donated millions, and Good Ventures is a philanthropic organization run by some tech billionaires that, again, if you go to their website, it's all about providing healthcare access to the poor. So that's where the money is coming from. It's coming overwhelmingly from philanthropists looking at healthcare for the poor. And go back to 806 and 807. This is what we were trying to tell people back with 806 and 807. 806 and 807, everybody attacked it because they didn't want a constitutional amendment. Now they do, right? 806 and 807, they were saying DC was saying was cannabis billionaires and Tilray of Canada. And I kept on saying, no, it's philanthropic organizations dedicated to ending the war on drugs, dedicated to healthcare access. And people didn't care with 806 and 807.
And that's the truth. That's the truth that we need to be speaking about. That's what needs to be brought to the attention. Because that's what people don't understand. I mean, there are OGs to this very day that will sit there and tell you that it's big corporate greed money that's funding this new OPAC approach. I've done it. I've said it. I've propagated the lie myself.
Yeah. And, you know, the lie was spun, and it totally caught me off guard, right? You know, it caught Chris Norman and I completely off guard. Well, not Chris. Chris actually kind of anticipated it. But I'm just thinking, look, it ends criminalization. It expunges records. It provides access to everybody. You know, it's like you could debate all the minutiae in there, you know, about the licensing language and all of that. You know, you can say that there are things in it that you don't like regarding the Constitution. But my view all along was we could debate it. But isn't the ultimate goal of all of this ending the criminalization of cannabis? And that's what 806 and 807 did. And that's what 820 does. And that's what 819 does. And it's like, there's always going to be aspects to each of the instruments you're not going to like. But people wouldn't listen. People instead demonized us. You know, like we were getting death threats for what?
Wow.
They're trying to get the conversation going, trying to make sure that people understood that 806 and 807 were about ending the criminalization of cannabis.
Yeah.
But, you know, people had other agendas than that, as they do now, I think.
I do want to add to that, to all those egos out there that think they stopped 806 and 807, you didn't. The pandemic did. Just like they didn't show the community 820, just like they're not, beyond us, having conversations with you about it. This community's shown they won't work with them, so that they don't give a damn. They were going to do it anyway. It was the pandemic. It was the fact that they couldn't, with a good conscience, ask people to gather signatures as the pandemic was starting. That's why they didn't push forward with 807. So DC thinks his pitchfork potheads were successful. He couldn't be more wrong. They would have done it anyway. As you said earlier, Damon, as you pointed out in a good way, this community doesn't have the power they think they do. I think it was you, maybe it was Matthew, I don't remember. But one of you pointed out this community doesn't have the political pull they think they do. It's a cold reality we need to accept. And then maybe we can understand we need to work together. We can't be so arrogant as to divide and think that we can get anything done.
Right.
There's not enough of us.
No.
From the perspective of New Approach, this is their perspective. The cannabis community, quote unquote, is a couple dozen people. And when we look at the amount of viewers that we have to our, Facebook Lives, the number of people that go to events and so on, that's the ballpark. And so it just for them was not much of a concern. And I think that if they simply just spent a couple hours at a town hall meeting with 806 and 807 and 820, that would have been a good thing. And I tried to convince them of all of it. But still, what it came down to was they're busy people, they have work, they have families, right? This is, for some of them, kind of more a job, even though it's a personal passion as well. And they just didn't want to go out of their way to placate individuals that they didn't think were relevant towards the end goal, right? The end goal was getting it on the ballot and getting it passed. And they just didn't think that, meeting with Darryl Carnes or whomever would make a difference in that regard.
Let's also be sure to point out that before they rolled out 806, that they flew a lawyer here to talk to us, to meet with us, with me and Lawrence and Norma, to ask us if we would be willing to show this to the community. They came to us and asked us to be the mediator, to bring this to the community when they came out with 806, their very first attempt. So they tried to work with this community.
Well, and that being said, Chris, you also then took 806 to get people's input. You brought it to dispensaries and to, to industry people. I wasn't involved in that. I was busy with other things, right? I wasn't, involved in the process of trying to get the word out for 806. But you did try, and nobody was, you were trying on Facebook, and people weren't caring. People weren't taking you seriously. And then lo and behold, it gets filed. And nobody was taking you seriously. You were pleading with people to have these conversations over 806. And nobody was paying attention. And then it got filed. So you're right. They did try. They didn't do it themselves, right? They basically said, here's a draft. We'd like to get some community input. Can you get us some community input? And then Chris, you couldn't get anybody to take you seriously.
Well, what I got was our heads on the chopping block.
Right.
I pushed us to show it to the community so we could try and explain to them what it was. Everybody had just spent the entire summer talking about wanting to do something new. I was hashtagging everything with full access 2020. It's what everybody wanted. At the end of that summer, everybody was messaging me, where do I gather signatures? Or where do I get the petitions to gather signatures? Where do I sign it? But not one person showed up to write it.
Mhm.
A couple people are mad at me because they said they tried to get me to come to their town for some town hall meetings. And yeah, I came up short on some of those. But I sat here night after night after night all summer long, paying for a room like this, making it available for the people in the general public to come in and tell me of what they thought we needed to do in the way of a petition. It was only after getting little to no response for the entire summer and then getting expectations at the end of the summer that I was somehow supposed to tell them where to go sign something that when we were presented with 806, I thought, well, this might be what everybody needs. So at least they put it to paper. Let's roll it out and see what they think. And again, they tried to come to this community. So I understand the argument. They didn't run 820 by everybody. They made one attempt to reach out to this community. And 807 took into consideration a lot of the stuff that people screamed about between 806 and 807.
Yeah, that's the point as well, that they pulled 806 because they finally got feedback from the community. They pulled 806 and then they refiled it as 807 in order to address community feedback. And that's a big sloppy mess. They should have really made sure with 806 that it had community input from the go. They didn't do it that way. That new approach, one thing I could say that I'm not happy with is they don't take the local activists as important enough of a voice. I feel that way. But nevertheless, I'm not going to say I reject their petition because of it. Garrett says, I'm here. Garrett, did you want to join us?
Yeah, it's the same link. If you want to pop in, you've got it in your messenger. From the
Most
last
people
time. Go ahead.
You do not know Garrett. So if he does join us, we could tell this community a little bit about Garrett, who's been a cannabis activist for a lot longer than we have.
There's the link again. You're welcome to join us. The more the merrier.
So let me ask you, Lawrence, when you say that these people have agendas, what do you think the agenda is on 820? Those who are against 820. What is the agenda?
My sense is with DC that DC was not known by this community, right, before 806, 807, right? I don't think people really were aware of him. He gained his prominence by spinning this narrative about it being cannabis billionaires and about the OCLA being in cahoots with them and all that stuff, right? That's how people started to pay attention to it. And if he can't maintain that narrative, if he can't maintain the narrative that New Approach is like some nefarious evil group meant to take away access to cannabis or destroy mom and pops, if he can't maintain that narrative, then he loses what his claim to fame, so to speak, was. So he can't concede this point that he's factually wrong about who New Approach is.
Okay, so where are we? Kind of like, I An Alex Jones, maybe?
I don't
A little bit.
know
Okay.
who's Alex
All right.
Jones.
All right,
No,
maybe
no,
Chris
think of it.
knows.
No, yes, you do, Lawrence. He's the far right wing guy that does InfoWars.
Yeah, Prison Planet InfoWars has been doing it for decades or whatever, but yeah.
Okay, he
I
just
I
got
was just-
sued. He just got sued by the Sandy Hook people. He lost that because he's been.
Oh
out
yeah, I
there-
heard about that.
Well,
Okay,
with that being
that's
said,
Alex Jones.
I don't think Alex Jones is a bad person. I just think he tries to over exaggerate his point to get it. And I know he has followers and different things in his audience and stuff that he likes, a little bit of ego there too. So I don't know if that's what it is with DC, but what if it is he really has genuine concern? I don't know. I haven't talked to him again.
I think that DC is aspiring towards becoming a media personality. And I don't
Okay.
begrudge him of that. People have aspirations in their life. I think that's his aspiration. And I
Right.
think that he capitalizes on things that are more scandalous
Mhm.
because, they energize him.
Okay,
And-
okay.
yeah.
I get it. I'm sorry. And you know what? And I'm even guilty of this with Chris. When you came on the scene, Chris, I did have it in my heart. I thought that you were just trying to grab attention, and it was your ego that was driving you. And I do apologize that, but there were times that, I think that me and you kind of, had a little back and forth, and you felt like I was attacking you. It wasn't that I was attacking you. I just thought you were disingenuous. You know what I mean? And it took me some time to realize that you aren't. Okay. I'm a
Well,
man to
thank you,
say that.
Damon. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Oh, I'm just saying that's I don't know about this guy. I don't know if he's being disingenuous. He just wants followers. I don't know. And that's why I'd like to bring him on, or at least one of you guys do a public just like this and talk with the guy and just
And-
have a sensible conversation and see where his mind is at. Because I mean, if we sit here and talk about the things that we've talked about today, how can you refute them? How can you refute that you're going to cause division? You're going to cause confusion. I mean, how can you?
Let me say this as well, that that there are a lot of people in the world who feel like they're always trying to claw themselves out of a pit of despair, a pit of depression, a pit of meaninglessness, right? And that they're struggling to feel like their life matters. They're struggling to find meaning. And the need for that, right? That need for that pulls people towards certain types of causes. And I think this is the situation with DEC. I'm kind of psychoanalyzing here. But I think that I won't speak to his family history. He's been public about it. I'm not going to bring it up. But I suspect that he has a need to claw himself out of an emotional struggle and gain a sense of meaning and worth. This is what so many of us do. I do it too, right? I need a sense of meaning and worth in my life. And the problem though is, and all that's fine, and that's very human. But
Right.
the problem is that when that need becomes selfish, and
Right.
that's how I feel about what's been happening.
Yes, there's times we get selfish, and I try to tell everybody you should put your selfishness away, because what we did here in the state was selfless. Us getting out on those street corners was selfless. You have people in little small rural towns that they were the only one out there. You know what I mean? In a little town, you become a target, a big target. It was a selfless act. Some people they get a little selfish, right? And if it isn't me, then it's and again, I'm going to go back to with Chris and how I felt about you, Chris. I felt like there were times that whenever you guys were talking about those petitions, you were communicating with me. I know you were trying to get input, and I wish that I would have took that out of my head, but I felt like that you were driving everybody to the Capitol, and you were gaining the following. People were following just like people follow DC and they watch him. And I felt like that you were going to steer people. I felt like that you were sending a message to people that they didn't have the power anymore, that we had to go to the Capitol and work with them. You remember? I think we had those conversations or whatever.
Yeah.
through text.
Yeah,
Right.
let me address that a little bit.
Yeah.
What I was trying to redirect our power. I was trying to take the cannabis activists from the street corner to the table
Well,
to help make the decisions.
I see what you're doing.
Right.
At the time. I couldn't. I was clouded. You know what I mean? I was clouded in
I
this
get it.
mindset, right? And I don't know if he is. I don't know if we are against him. I just want everybody to, because everybody's got a following. I mean, everybody's got people out there, and they may not watch you. They may watch him. They may watch Isaac. They may watch but everybody needs to come together and realize this is as a consensus that this has to happen. You know, it creating a divide again, and the confusion is only going to be detrimental to the whole movement in general. And we're going to end up with shit that we really don't want, right? Because they know that they're going to see that, just like Isaac points out, and he's pointed out several times. He just did it in the message just now on the comment section or whatever, that we have to show these people at the Capitol that we mean business. The more signatures that we turn in on all three, it sends a message to these people, in my opinion, right? To where somebody like yourself or whoever is going down there and talking with them, maybe they'll take us a little bit more serious, right?
Looks like Isaac is going to join us.
Okay, please do.
He just did. I'm letting him in right now.
I know I tend to ramble, y'all, and I can't articulate my words the way that I want, but you guys kind of get the gist of what I'm saying.
You're welcome to ramble. That's what we're here for. We don't have a commercial break we have to
And
take.
damn, I'm
so.
a circle again.
You're a circle again.
How do I? Yeah, look at
It's-
Isaac. Whoa.
I think your phone is a little slow to react, so it makes you a
Low
circle
rider.
for a minute.
I smoke a lot of weed. I think it gets a contact or something. I don't know.
It cleared itself up last night, so maybe it'll do it again. And again, I want to make sure everybody sees we at least still have extra seats. And if more people want to join after that, we have an even bigger table. In fact, we could here we go. We could.
It's our
do
virtual
this.
town hall meeting.
Hey,
This
Chris,
is our-
the link you posted to join in the comments is actually just a link to the video. It's not a link to the Zoom meeting.
Whoops. I forgot I was sharing that around in some of the rooms. So let me change that right now. Let me grab the invitation over here. But see, everybody, look, we have plenty of chairs for everybody. And this isn't even the biggest room.
So I just wanted to jump on for a minute and reiterate what y'all are saying. We lived this with the other petitions. We lived the division that happened in the past, and all it did was slow down the movement and made everybody's efforts harder to do. This is not my opinion. This is the absolute truth of what happened, what the history of legalization here in Oklahoma has been. And there's a lot of people in this industry that don't like me. There's a lot of people that I don't care much for. At this point, I am willing to put all of my differences aside to say that we have to support all three, because I understand the gravity of what doing anything other than that does to the momentum of all of them. And if we don't get an overwhelming amount of signatures, an overwhelming amount of support for all three of these, the lawmakers will use that as ammunition to go even further with regulations next year.
They've made this very clear. They've made this very clear to me. The lawmakers that I've spoken with said that if these petitions fail, then it's going to be, a field day for the anti-cannabis lawmakers next year.
For sure.
Sorry, I was trying to
And
fix
that-
that. I
that-
couldn't take Isaac's big head, but it didn't clear up the problem. There we go. There we go. You're right size there. All right. That was kind of hard to watch. Look,
Well,
I'm
I
willing
think
to, let me make this very clear publicly. I'm willing to work with anybody. I've always been willing to work with anybody. Yeah, I'm asking the question, what do I do? What do others do? Damon, what do you do? What do we do when we see this opposition? Yes, we need to have a conversation with this person. Yes, it's great to give him the benefit of the doubt, but then let's look at the history and let's look at when he did this last time and all the private conversations Lawrence and I had with him, explaining to him the truth. Not one word of which ever made it to a single video. So while I'm open to what you're suggesting, and again, he can come in here right now or whatever it takes to have these conversations. But what do we do when it's total refusal and he does what he told Lawrence he was going to do, which is to ramp up a campaign, a deliberate campaign to try and screw up 820, not caring that it's going to, as you guys keep explaining, going to screw up, going to backfire and screw up 818, 819. What do we do?
Continue to be
Someone.
positive. You continue to be positive. You continue to put a positive message forward. You continue to show the world that there is a positive side that can be looked at, a positive perspective that can be heard. And you continue, for every time there's a negative piece of content out there, you don't comment on that thread. You don't like that post. You don't copy that link. You don't give that post any attention, because that will keep it in everybody's news streams. Instead, make another positive piece of content to put out there, and hope that people do interact with that post, so that that's what's in everybody's news streams, because social media is where this battle is being fought. And if the best way for something to die on social media is to have zero interactions, because that's what the algorithm does.
Right.
All right, I got a second. On one of my posts that I posted earlier, there was a response, and it says that you can spout as out as you like 820 as a Trojan horse for further overregulation of cannabis. And I have no business for a patient to purchase from, because I mentioned something about a business. The legislature that 820 seeks to give power and control to killed it with monopolization. 820 offers zero protection for the Native American post McGirt. 818 and 819 as constitutional amendments do.
Lawrence, go ahead.
It's not a Trojan horse for further regulation. One way or another, there's going to be further regulation. If 818, 819, and 820 all pass, our lawmakers are going to continue to regulate cannabis for the rest of our lives. Something that
But
Fed
it is-
has pointed out,
Yes.
right?
It is true, though. It is true that 820 will be easier for the lawmakers to regulate in whatever way they decide to regulate it. It will be
Yep.
much easier. So that's where an opinion like DC's
that's
gains
only if
traction.
That's only if it goes by itself. If 819 goes with 820, that
Mhm.
takes their power away.
Correct. But the point of this is to try to understand where DC is coming from, or why so many people can get on board with his opinion, is because what he's saying about 820, if 820 stood alone, it would be much easier to regulate, and for the lawmakers to decide whatever decisions they want to decide about it and do whatever they want to do with it, than it
Right.
would be the 820. So having that argument to back him up is why he gets traction with that argument.
Do
But
you mean
yes.
because, hey, hold on. Do you mean because it's statutory?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. That said, I'm gonna let Lawrence answer this, but I just want to say I think that's such a weak argument, because the same people we're talking about didn't want a constitutional amendment a year ago. So I'm really sick of that argument. But go ahead, Lawrence.
So part of what bothers me is the rhetoric. It's a Trojan horse, as if the agenda is already there to basically screw up the program. It's not that New Approach is creating a Trojan horse. New Approach is creating a petition that is more vulnerable, of course, no doubt about it. It's more vulnerable to legislative change. Constitutional amendments aren't. But the thing is, 819 is hardly anything other than the laundry list of our individual rights. And that means that there's nothing that stops our lawmakers from passing whatever they want concerning business rules if we have 819 or if we have 820. 818 is really the only one that is very restrictive, that adds restrictions to what lawmakers can do with respect to business. 818 puts in the Constitution what the license fees are. 818 rolls back the extent of seed to sale. 818 creates a whole new regulatory agency with more oversight, right? So 818 does a lot that limits what our lawmakers could do. 819 doesn't do any of that either, right? So whatever weaknesses are there for 820 in terms of it creating a big open space for lawmakers to still change business rules, that's just as true with 819 as well. I'm fine. I completely agree that 819 is better, and in many regards, 818 is better than 820. I completely agree. But the problem is here, this black and white, good and evil, right and wrong. It's not. It's better and worse. It's this
but
thing does
again,
this, that thing does that.
I think that you took what I said, like I'm trying to defend his actions.
No, I didn't see it
What I'm
that
trying
way.
to do is let everybody gain a perspective of why what he says is so effective.
Right.
It's because if you can take something that is legitimately true, as far as what the lawmakers could do, then that builds fear. And upon that fear, people can agree with you because they can see that logic as well. And
Right.
so rather than trying to say that he's wrong, it might be a better approach to try to tell him, you may that yes, you are right. If this was to pass alone, this would be easier to regulate. But if we support all of them, we can get all of them to pass.
And that's
All of them.
exactly what I've been saying. I've been saying that it is true that because 820 is statutory, that lawmakers can make changes. But 820 still contains things that 819 doesn't. And I also
And
think
I
it's
think just
unlikely that our
repeating that
lawmakers.
message over and over and over is how you combat. If you can't get him to
Right.
stop being against it, then that's how you combat it in the public eye. You make memes that support all three. You make content that supports all three, and you
Right.
just let your message be louder.
And that's right. And you're right. But that means, of course, that I engage with the negativity, right? So there's this, like, just like this morning, this bashing of 820, that 820 kills 420. And I respond by saying, no, it doesn't.
You don't-
820 has a problem.
Did
819,
did you respond on the meme?
yes.
And so you brought that meme into all the news feeds of everybody that you communicate with. Instead, you should have made a meme that supported all three and put that out there.
So your opinion, Isaac, is to not try and set the record straight on any of his posts and to not engage with him, and somehow he'll lose traction, and the 20 or 30 people, whatever, that might actually listen to his crap will somehow stop hearing it and stop then multiplying it by putting it on their page. I mean, John Fraser's now got it on his page.
If those people see the positive message being pushed out on everybody else's page, and they have the opportunity to see those other perspectives constantly on everybody else's page, it will change opinions.
Yeah, I think Isaac is right about that.
There's a movie out there that I used to love to watch called, I think it was The American President, and there's a scene in that where the team of people are arguing because Michael, whoever plays the president in that, isn't answering any of the negative. He's just staying quiet. Staying quiet isn't what I think that we need to do. I just think putting the positive spin on all three is what we need to do. If we stay quiet and just let those opinions drive the narrative, that would be a bad move. But if we constantly put a positive narrative out about all three, and people will get access to that via our social medias, pushing that positive message out, I think overall that makes a huge difference in how impactful each of us are.
That's a good point. You know, a meme that basically says 818 cleans up the medical program. 819 expands access to everyone. 820 provides expungement, right? They all have good things, vote all the above.
Right.
Yeah.
Damon, when you're done there, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because you're the one, aside from myself, you're the only one who's really given any pushback on the let's all ignore DC and he'll go away
No,
argument.
sometimes I'm reminded of the Simpsons episode, Isaac, that the big it's like a Halloween one, and all the big statues for the businesses and stuff all came alive, and they started walking around, and they didn't know that all they had to do was turn around and stop paying attention to them, and they stopped. You know what I mean? It was because the people were focused in on them that they were allowed to have this power to be able to move around. I understand the mindset of that, of just ignoring him. And it does, and I completely understand where Isaac's coming from, because he's right on this with the algorithms. As long as you're not commenting and you're not, again, we're putting it in other people's news feeds if we go in there and come and try to argue with him or try to debate him like that. All I can say is just try to bring him on a public forum like this, try to speak to the man and speak reason and common sense to him. If you can't go past that, that's the only strategy you have left, is completely ignore him. And I don't, again, I'm giving the guy the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if he's coming with genuine concern. He doesn't realize what he's doing, and these issues need to be brought up to him. The confusion, the division, everything else needs to be brought up to him. I don't know. That's my opinion. I want to
Okay,
talk to the guy.
well, I have no problem with getting on board with that. Paying attention to DC really isn't something I do. I've got plenty of other things to be concentrating on besides DC. Again, though, I'm concerned that this is allowed in this community, that so many people would be okay with what he's doing, because it's more than just another opinion. It's an opinion that he's going to put a lot of effort into spreading that will cause people to continue to have their lives destroyed.
Right.
So look, as I said, he had nothing to do with why 806 didn't, or 7 didn't go ahead and do signatures. It was the pandemic. If they had, then all those arrests since then and all the death since then would be on his head, or should be, because he tried to continue the vicious cycle, knowing people are getting arrested, knowing the facts. And so if he's successful here and people continue to have their lives destroyed, I'm sorry, but being quiet won't be an option, because all those arrests, in my opinion, will be the fault and on the heads of the people who push back, if they are successful, if their effort has any impact. I don't think it will. I don't think he's that important. But if
I
it
get
does,
that. Yeah, I get that. And I get your argument there. But it would be arrogant of any of us to think that any one of our opinions by itself makes that big of a difference. It's all of us having our opinions and sharing our opinions and putting those opinions out there that help form this community and shape this community. And his opinion is just as valuable as ours. And I'm not defending his opinion, because mine is different from his as far as supporting all three versus supporting just two. But I don't think that you win over the crowd that follows him by telling everybody that he is doing it for publicity, he's doing it for more followers or anything. I think that it's very possible that DC is genuine in what he believes, and for whatever reason he just doesn't see it the way that we do. But I wouldn't want to be censored, and I wouldn't want to censor him. I just know that the best way to combat that is to overwhelmingly put more positive stuff out.
okay, but to push back on that, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, because people could die trying to escape the theater if there's no fire. Okay, that's a crime. Those deaths are on you. So I repeat, if he is successful, but again, he's not going to be, but if he did have the ability to do what he wants to do, I will publicly hold him accountable. I think everybody should, because while, yeah, we're all entitled to our opinion, and I'm not trying to hush him, okay, we should also be responsible for what the words we say, especially those of us up here and him that have people that follow them. Especially us should be more responsible and held more accountable to the people that follow us. And so he doesn't get a pass as just an ordinary citizen who has a different opinion. I'm sorry, he doesn't, because his opinion will hurt people that follow him. With that kind of following comes responsibility. While you feel responsible to only put out good content, I understand that. It's great. He should also have some responsibility. And if what he's doing harms people, he should be held responsible for that. And I just feel strongly about that. And it doesn't matter what the issue is.
And a lot of times in response to that, we're not karma. And sometimes we just have to let go and concentrate on the things that are important for everyone. And I'm with Isaac in a lot of ways in that it's, yes, it's misinformation, and yes, it's based on conjecture and non-truth, but that doesn't help.
Teresa's joined us. Hello, Teresa. How are you doing?
Hey guys, I had to put a girl up in this mix.
Yeah,
How are
there's
you
a
guys doing?
little too much testosterone in the room, that's for sure.
Oh, got to mix it up a little bit. How are you guys doing?
We're enjoying a lively conversation. How are you today?
Not bad. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my hair here. Sorry for that. I think it's his background. Oh, just been busy with work stuff. You know how that goes. And I hopped on here and you guys were still here, so I thought I'd jump in.
So you've been listening to what we've been talking about. Do you-
I chimed in at the end of it. I kind of jumped in when Matt was talking, so fill me in a little bit better.
We've been talking about the positivities and the reasons for voting for 818, 819, and 820, how they can all enhance each other and how we as a community need to come together and do that. I have brought some attention to and emphasized some of the, what I consider to be the detrimental words coming out of DC.
Yeah.
The, you know, the
I caught that
820
part.
the 820 kills 420, you know, I now see
Yeah.
that on Fraser's page. You know, I just got done saying, I feel like people who have a following, I mean, I understand what Isaac is saying in the sense that everybody should be able to speak, and if their opinion is different, so be it. But when you
Right.
have a following like this, and when you have people whose lives are affected by what you say, and they will
Mhm.
make major decisions based on what you say, I think you need to be held more accountable for what you say. I don't think he should get
No,
a
I
pass.
think he has, yeah. No, I agree. And, you know, one of the most difficult things is when you do disagree and the backlash that you get if you do. And it just, the battles to me, I kind of just chosen my battles and let people talk sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time. But coming, you know, us coming together and having this discussion, you know, where we all agree, like some of the agendas that are being pushed and the information, it's been a fear campaign that we've all been very much against. You know, the misinformation, because no, 820 does not kill 420. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like what exactly does he think it kills? I don't understand his logic. Do you guys?
He says it's a Trojan horse,
Well,
so that if only 820 passes, then it will allow the lawmakers to come in and do lots of harm, vaguely, do lots of harm to the program.
You know, he's one of those guys that thinks, you know, his opinion is the major opinion, and it's really not. And I think likes on Facebook or social media have given the representation of what the following truly is. You know, I'm at the Capitol quite a bit, and you know, I don't see these guys up there. I don't see them up there doing anything. And when they do show up, you know, they walk through and sit down and, you know, try to be as intimidating as possible. Some of them, not all of them, but you know, it's a certain look a certain way, and that's just not the image that we need. Really, we don't need that.
Damon, you've been
It's
quiet for a
been
while. What, you want to throw in here
yeah,
something?
I want to throw a lot of stuff, but y'all don't want to hear me rant. I was
Okay,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
honestly, you know what? It probably is a Trojan horse. And it's not a Trojan horse in the sense that he thinks so the corporate takeover and big business and whatnot. It's a Trojan horse to get a criminal justice reform written into our law, right? Let's be honest. Same thing with 788. We had an issue. Isaac will even he can address this too. Some of us looked at it. It was a 788 was a Trojan horse, or excuse me, yes, it was a Trojan horse for the extension on the petitioning process, which it was. I know what their intent was to extend the length of time to run a petition here in the state to a whole year, and there were a few other tweaks that were made to that, and we ran that petition right along 788, right? And it was a Trojan horse because we knew I wasn't a part of that group, but I understand where they were coming from. They knew that if they ran a referendum, a statutory law change, that they could do it because the previous years we got those numbers, no problem, right? So they knew that they could get the numbers and be able to push that other one through. But there was already a divide created at the very beginning because, again, the groups it wasn't us, it wasn't them. Some people didn't get along. And so it created enough to divide, even though we quashed a lot of that and we fixed a lot of it and still people came on to help, it wasn't enough to get the other one through. We didn't have enough signatures on that other petition to extend the amount of time to do the petition here. We're gonna go the same way right now. This is why it needs to be driven home to DC. Yes, DC, I'm willing to admit it. I look at it and I see it as a Trojan horse. At first I seen it as a corporate takeover, but now I understand it and I see who's behind it. You know what I mean? It's the criminal justice reform that needs to be passed.
So you see it. So hold on. So you see it. So you acknowledge it as a Trojan horse, but a good one.
Yes, without a doubt.
It's a horse we all want to
Same thing with
ride, right?
788 was the same way, but we've seen it as a Trojan horse in a bad way. And that's why I try to open up, and the discussion and try to show people that supporting 788, you have to. There was a multitude of reasons why you had to support 788, regardless if you agreed with it or not. We couldn't have had a third letdown. If we had 3 years in a row that we did not make it anywhere, again, the perception of the public is Oklahomans don't want it. In 14, that's all you heard. Oh, it'll never happen here. It'll never happen here. And all I could think to myself is, I assure you it can happen here. But with that mindset, it'll never happen, right? We're going through the same. We're running into the same problems now.
Damon
Sorry, I
had
got a
to
little rant.
convince me to support 788. I felt like because it was a referendum that it would get tore up immediately. And they tried to tear it up immediately. If y'all remember back in 2018, as soon as it passed, they were already trying to block it in so many different ways. That was why I was against 788, and Damon had to convince me that supporting it, even if it wasn't everything that we wanted, even if it wasn't a constitutional amendment at the time, that it had to be supported, because doing anything different than supporting it was telling the general public that Oklahoma isn't ready for weed. And we had worked too damn hard trying to convince Oklahoma that they were ready for it.
Lawrence, you said something earlier about what you've heard from legislators if these petitions fail. Would you repeat that again, please?
What I have been told was that the lawmakers, and I don't know if this is true, but I have been told this, that the lawmakers will feel that they have all the more latitude to be extremely tough on cannabis if these petitions fail, that they'll basically say the public at large doesn't support cannabis. If these petitions fail, that will be the conclusion. The public at large does not support cannabis, and they will feel empowered, therefore, to who knows how far they'll go.
Here comes the hammer. Here comes the hammer when they do that.
Okay. All right. Teresa, let me ask you a question. I said this earlier, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I talked about why the legislators will not get in front of 820 if, say, it's the only one that passes, because I've heard the argument from some that they could delay it forever, whatever. They'll stop it. We'll never get full access. I say that full access allows those at the Capitol who don't like this program to have a clean conscience. It allows the governor to look better to his national party, because now because both the governor and Langford have said publicly, Langford on the Senate floor in the last couple of weeks, and the governor on Fox News, national Fox News, they've talked about how the voters didn't know what they were voting for. They've talked about they've called our program a Trojan horse recently. I think they will love full access because it allows them to clean their conscience. They can now say, no, wait, we have a medical program over here. And they can do whatever they feel they need to that for them to feel good about it being medical. And everybody else is in an adult use program. So there's no longer, Stitt no longer looks like he can't handle his own people on the national level to the National Republican Party. What do you think? Knowing the people at the Capitol, like I know them also, I say they want us to do it. They can't get it done on their own, but they want it and they won't get in the way of it.
From the conversations that I've had, and I have had conversations with a lot of leadership, what they've told me is that wouldn't have a problem with recreational. The biggest problem is the opposition that doesn't like cannabis at all to make that transition. But if the people vote for it, then most likely they're not going to go against their constituents. So it really would be based on the demographic of which counties are voting for it as to where we see the support. That's hard to say at this point without knowing what those numbers are.
So in other words, you think there'll still be some holdouts who are still going to hate it. And of course, I agree.
I mean,
But-
not with the tax revenue, not with the taxes
Right.
that they're not collecting. And also they're looking at this number as well is, there are not purchase limits. There are possession limits, but there are not purchase limits. So there is no limit to the amount of product that patients can purchase. So all of these purchases that are being made, some of it's already going to, the non-license holders. So they might as well make
A
that.
lot of it is.
That's really, let's be honest.
Yeah,
They're
Without
not,
a doubt.
I mean, they're
Damon
looking at
was
the number
talking
of
about that
sales.
earlier.
I mean, let's look at the numbers because they don't lie. Look at the number of sales of product versus the number of patients and tell me how that makes sense.
It doesn't.
Right.
That's the thing.
What?
You weren't here for the conversation earlier, but I've been saying this, and Isaac could probably back me up on this. I've been saying this since day one. You remember Isaac in the store? You were concerned that there were a lot of businesses licenses being purchased up, but that there were enough patients, right? But I told you, once people figured out how easy it was to get a license, they would start coming on. That's why we started what we're doing there, helping up to 50 people a day get their licenses. Anyway, and it started getting bigger and bigger. And I kept saying along the way that for every one, there's this many. For every one, there's this. Right now, it sets that, in my opinion, for every card holder, there are up to 4 people in our state that consume. And I can tell you the list, and I just use a prime example of a husband and a wife. Only one has the card, but they're both consumers. And up to 4 people, that means that we have over, and 1.2 million is a low number, consumers here in our state that live here in our state. So that will just try to back up what you were saying. That's all.
For the numbers to add up in terms of about 400,000 card holders, that means that every card holder would have to spend about $2,500 a year on cannabis. I don't know how much people spend, but for the numbers to add up, that's what it would have to be.
I don't spend that.
No, for sure. And
No.
I'm a consumer all day, every day, and I don't spend that much money.
Yeah.
But I can
Of course,
get that cheap $10 ounce, so I'm good.
the home grow keeps me out of the dispensaries anyway. So
Right.
I've made
I don't,
so
I
few
don't have a
purchases.
home grow, and if I paid dispensary prices and didn't get no deals or anything, I would spend $2,500 a year with how much
I mean,
consume.
my landlord that owns multiple cannabis businesses won't even let me grow in the house.
Crazy.
That's unfortunate. That sucks.
I think our politicians, I think the governor, Stitt, and a lot of our senators and representatives will be happy to keep their mouth shut as we legalize it, because they can go to the national party. Stitt can go to the national party and say, I didn't support this. I didn't make this happen. They crammed it down my throat and I had to deal with it as a governor. In Colorado, Governor Hickenlooper took the same approach. He was anti-marijuana, but the state forced his hands to where he didn't have the ability to say no to it, but he had plausible deniability. It wasn't so much that he was against it as he didn't have to take the blame for it.
Well, that's the same thing I think they want.
Well, I
here,
mean,
is
how's
they
that
want
gonna
us to
make him
pass it.
look when he's How's it gonna make him? But look, think about how that's gonna make him look when he's gonna say, I was against bringing the state 300 to $500 million a year, but they made me do it.
Well, I mean,
I mean,
that's,
it's gonna make him look like an idiot.
it looked like an idiot to all of us, but to the hardcore, right-wing hardliners, that would be him falling in line so that he can progress his way up through politics beyond the governor's mansion.
And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the bigger, broader culture war and how cannabis really isn't his number one issue. It's abortion, and winning the abortion argument in his mind gives him the ability to do anything else, including whatever he wants to the program.
Well, he's already done that. He's already accomplished his mission with abortion.
Right. And if he gets reelected, that reaffirms to him, this, in my opinion, that reaffirms to him that it's okay to run the government from the pulpit.
Okay, Chris, I'm gonna go down your rabbit hole for a second, and damn it, I try really hard to not talk about these issues because I see them as hot button issues that can divide, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This year in politics around the country, not just here in Oklahoma, but especially here in Oklahoma, but around the country, women have an opportunity to stand up and show that they are a force to be reckoned with as a voting bloc. With abortion being that hot button issue, women, there's been a women's movement for quite a while, and at times it seems to go faster than others, and other times it seems to stall out. This abortion issue is about women. I mean, it's a lot of men try to make it their issue, but it's a woman's issue that always has been. And this year, women are going to have the opportunity to show the world that either it was right for you to not worry about us because we're not going to band together, or you were wrong to ignore us because our opinions matter. And I think you're going to see that on that abortion issue this year.
So you think that the culture war, the women will come out and win the culture war?
Well, I think they'll either come out and win it and send a big message that they are to not be ignored, or they will stay quiet and lose it, and it will be a shift in this culture war that it will be a battle that they will have lost by not showing up.
Okay, I want to say somebody just sent me a message, said DC says he's blocked. I don't know that he's blocked. I can't even
Let's
figure out how to
unblock
look
him.
it up. If he was blocked, I'd
Some
unblock
of you are
him.
old and you're looking like you're getting tired. So I'm old, but I don't get tired. So let's invite DC into the room.
Yeah, well, hang on. What I'm trying to say here is he's saying I've got him blocked. I don't think that I do, but it doesn't matter anyway because this is Zoom. So if somebody can just get him the link,
Oh,
it
okay.
has nothing to do with Facebook. Okay.
Right.
If he can get the link, he can get in the room. It'll be broadcast on Facebook, but he can get in here, and I'll be right back. Lawrence, I'd like you, if you don't mind, you might not want to touch it, but I'd like you to address how Roe v. Wade was actually settled, because I say it's a bigger issue than just women's rights. That's just the first ones on the chopping block.
Maybe somebody could get the link for this Zoom. Teresa, you just joined, so maybe you could send the link to DC in Messenger. I just don't have that link. So she's gone with Roe v. Wade. The essence of the decision in Roe v. Wade was, and it was based on previous court precedents, that there is a quote unquote penumbral right to privacy. So Griswold v. Connecticut, about a decade before Roe v. Wade, determined that couples had a legal right, married couples had a legal right to use contraceptives. So in 1960, it was illegal even for married couples to use contraceptives. And Griswold v. Connecticut, I think it was 63, said that the Constitution doesn't explicitly mention a right to privacy, but it's implied by all the other rights that we have. If they don't have a right to seize our property, they don't have a right to search us. If we have a right to, free association and so on, it all basically implies that we have a right over our own bodies. And so Griswold v. Connecticut and then subsequent decisions established this right to privacy. Then what happened basically was when Roe v. Wade was decided, Roe v. Wade was based upon this. We have a right to privacy. Women have a right to privacy, and thus the government cannot intrude and tell women what they can and cannot do with their bodies. That was the essence of it. And the state has an interest in the fetus once the fetus becomes viable. But prior to that, the state can't have an articulable interest, a legitimate articulable interest in the fetus. And so Roe v. Wade basically is based on the idea that we have a right to privacy. And what the Alito decision does is it says there is no right to privacy. American citizens lack any constitutional protection with respect to their own bodies. That's the Alito decision. It doesn't even talk about abortion. Well, it does, but the focus is not abortion. The focus is there exists no constitutional right to privacy.
And that doesn't matter gender, right?
Yeah, it would mean that our lawmakers could ban intramarital sex, our lawmakers could ban contraceptives, our lawmakers could ban homosexuality, that if the Alito decision becomes the majority opinion, we no longer in America have a right to privacy, that the government can come in and make any sexual practice illegal, they can make tattoos illegal, they can make eating meat illegal. They could basically dictate to us what we can and can't do with our bodies.
Okay, we have another one joining us.
Dun, dun, dun.
Let's see. Okay, let's see. Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are y'all?
Hello. Your name disappeared. Can you, what's your name?
Shalon Youngblood.
are you?
Good. How are y'all?
We're getting a, hold on, we're getting a loop. You need to turn something down.
Shalon Youngblood.
Down.
Good. How are y'all?
We're getting a, hold on.
What's happening is somebody has the audio from their Facebook on.
Yeah, you need to turn off your Facebook. Hey,
It's a madhouse.
all right, try and talk
let's-
now.
Let's go in and get back to the subject of the petitions and things. Because we could ramble on forever about all kinds of things, but let's get back to the petitions.
Okay, that's,
And the issue was brought up earlier about, the McGirt and that there's no protections for the Native Americans in things, but 818 or 819 does because it's constitutional. Does 820 not provide the same protections regardless of that?
I don't understand this McGirt point. How would it being a matter of state constitution, would it have any bearing on McGirt?
I'm not sure. I don't understand his rebuttal. I don't understand.
It doesn't make sense to me because in native lands, they can still keep cannabis illegal, right? It doesn't matter if it's in the state constitution because natives aren't beholden to state law or state constitution. They're only beholden to federal. So maybe he's confused about, the division of powers. I don't know.
I think so. I don't, that's what I was trying to understand, because I mean, it's state constitution. It holds no bearing over them anyway. So I was lost too.
okay.
Hey, yeah.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name when you came in. Somebody else was talking and the name has disappeared to me.
Oh, Shalon Youngblood.
Okay, Shalon, would you like to step in? Let's give you the mic for a minute and let's hear what you have to say.
Well, my concerns are very singular. I own a dispensary. I am in cannabis, but I'm more of an activist for the Black community. And so when I saw the conversation this morning and the intellectual points were being made about it being criminal justice reform, I mean, that's what we've been waiting on. Oklahoma is one of the only states that never addressed criminal justice reform. They didn't address the social equity. There were no provisions put in place. And so every time I talk to someone that said that wants, because I'm more of a behind the scenes person. I don't really do all this stuff, so they always say, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So when it comes, I'm just concerned, why is it there's so much pushback, especially if you're talking about there were problems with the other ones. So I don't know the person that's the campaign. I've never met him. I hear all the things, people that like them, people that don't like them, they come to the store. I talk to everybody, but I have a strong concern about it feeling like the same way when people talk about, we say Black Lives Matter, and then someone says all lives matter. And then we talk about the movement is being funded by George Soros and all this. It just really sounds like the misinformation, without just making it a race issue, or because again, we know that cannabis affects Black Latinos the most, poor white people. We know that that's the people that are the most vulnerable amongst us. So I don't understand why anybody would get against it. And when I research him and look into him, because I do work in mental health and I contract with the government for social services, when I try to get information, he's like us. So it's like, why is he against something? So again, I'm not as sophisticated and intellectual as you guys are about the cannabis industry. I respect your knowledge, but when it comes to criminal justice reform, black people dying at the hands of police, poverty, overcoming generational trauma, increasing our generational wealth, that's what I care about. That's why.
Can I speak to that? Because the few things I want to say, one is that I have right here up on my screen, I could screen share it, that there's about a 5-to-1 disproportion between criminal arrests for Caucasians versus Blacks for cannabis, right? Blacks are arrested at a rate of 5 times more than whites for cannabis. And so the legacy of people carrying a criminal record for cannabis will be about that. They'll be about 5 times greater in the Black community than the white community. And that's something that 820 addresses, but 819 doesn't. With retroactivity, with expungement, it will be disproportionately helping the Black community. And I was in meetings with the Oklahoma Progressive Network, which has a lot of Black membership, who were advocating for 820. And so we don't see them, on Facebook, but that Black community that I spent time with during the process of working with Orca and working with a new approach, that time, part of it at least, was spent with Black advocates who were supporting 820.
And thank you for saying that, Mr. Lawrence. I listen to you and I follow the things that you write all the time. I'm more of an observer. And so that's my concern. And that's why it's like, I can't be quiet anymore, even though I want to be more behind the scenes, because there's nobody Black being represented. I love that Teresa always speaks out and she's very vocal as a woman, as a Latino herself. But we definitely have to have more representation. And I am disappointed in my Black community. I will tell you that they just want to sit back and sometimes make money because they feel like in Oklahoma, we don't get any progression when it comes to the Black community. Still, the laws that he passed, that everything that's happening, buying them here in Tulsa. So when they talk about Tulsa and Oklahoma County is the one that got 788 passed, I'm willing, we need to be at Juneteenth. That's the other thing I want to come. When it comes to these petitions that you want signed, Juneteenth is coming up in 2 weekends in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. I didn't see any representation in the past for cannabis when it was trying to go.
I was gonna say we hit a couple times. It depends on when the petition fell.
Gotcha. But I just want to help. I am more, like I said, but I want to help with, I support all of it. I am a business owner. I am a consumer, but I specifically want to lend my voice and my support to the criminal justice reform aspect of it.
It is the #1 issue, y'all. I've been saying it since day one. As long as we're labeled criminals, we can never progress. We can never see it as beneficial, medical, et cetera, et cetera. We have to fix this issue. It's righting the wrong. It's apologizing. I'll say this all the time, and Isaac hears me beat it in his ear, but it's that the best thing, or the best thing a man could do is admit that he's wrong, right? It's the extreme, right? Say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. That's what we can do with the criminal justice reform. And again, it takes the stigma away to where you're not still having people. And I bring this up. I lost my mother in 2020, 3 months, cancer, she was gone. And she refused. Isaac will tell you. They tried to offer her RSO, and my mother, she had a card. She didn't believe in it. It didn't come from her doctor, her primary care. You know what I mean? So she went to her deathbed without even trying it, not even believing in it. I think that's what criminal justice, I mean, if it does anything, it says that we were wrong about this issue. Okay, we're willing to admit it. Now let's move forward.
And I just
Sorry,
have
just
one
went on a
question.
rant.
One question. Is it true that this bill is backed by someone connected or with the ACLU?
Yes, 820, right? 820 is coming from New Approach, which is a national organization that's responsible for legalization across the country. And New Approach is run by someone named Graham Boyd, who was formerly the drug policy director for the ACLU, as well as that Ryan Kiesel, who is the executive director for the ACLU here in Oklahoma, is involved also in the petition. So ACLU, right, have wanted to end prohibition around the country.
820 has a group that's out gathering signatures. The ACLU also has a group just as large of volunteers that are out gathering signatures for 820. They are working together.
Yeah, I signed it during Mayfest.
Yeah, I signed it up at the Capitol.
Mhm.
Look, I want you to know, I'd like you to come on here more often because you're right. And this is a problem we've talked about in the past is we can't get enough people different than us to come on here and have these conversations. Now, Lawrence got us some information a couple years ago that we've been making clear to everybody as often as we can when we talk about the arrests. And, you know, with roughly 6,000 a year being arrested and 27% of those being Black, while only 7% of the population is Black, and yet every study shows usage is the same. I'm trying to explain to people that small town Oklahoma is still using this as a race divider. They're still using it to put the foot on top of entire communities, and it has to stop. So please encourage your friends to reach out to us. You please reach out to me. Come on here on a regular basis. It can be about whatever you want to talk about, because here's the thing that most people don't realize. Your problems are a lot like ours. So there's a lot here we can talk about and start to understand each other a whole lot better. Because you're right. These people that will say 820 kills 420 don't give a damn, in my opinion, about the way this is played out in Oklahoma with those numbers. We do, we all do. And we want much more participation from people different than us.
There's someone in the comments named Don Chico who's trying to get, I guess he's trying to get Zoom to launch, who wants to join us. And he says that 820 is trash. And his reason is quote unquote, it won't launch. So hopefully he can join us.
Okay, well, yeah, the link is in there. Let me put it in there again. Again, anyone's welcome to join us. While we're waiting for him, I'll add again. And Teresa, maybe you can back this up, that that they would love to at the Capitol be able to justify this program. They feel like hypocrites with it being called medical. So full access gives them the money and a clean conscience as far as on the national stage with the National Republican Party, which is important right now. So because of those reasons, I don't see them getting in front and stopping it. Teresa, what do you think?
I don't think they will at all. I think their priority this year was to try to regulate the businesses better. There was a lot of pushback from the businesses themselves about this. So that was their main focus, because they had so many people that were calling in and complaining about other businesses or how things are done and the illegal activity. All of those things was what their major focus was. But I don't think they'd be opposed to recreational. None of the conversations I had led to that.
You know, this is my impression as well, that their concerns basically had overwhelmingly to do with illegal conduct.
Yeah. Just eliminating the bad players. That's been their
with
focus.
Diversion, with black market. And we've only seen our lawmakers expand the patient side of it, right? Teresa brought up adding gun rights, allowing us to keep the entirety of our home grow, allowing for ointments, which 788 didn't, changing the punishment for not having a card from an arrest to a cite and release. And so, you know, for the last 4 years, our lawmakers have not harmed patients. You know, there's, you know, the new thing where, you know, there's a restriction on sharing there's aspects to that I'm concerned about, but they created an exemption that so long as it's sharing a joint, it's not a problem. So, right, our lawmakers don't seem to be wanting to encroach upon the patient side of it. It's the business side.
It's all the mess and all the chaos that was created, and the chaos continues. You know, we can't pretend like the cannabis industry isn't a little bit dramatic. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
like let's call it what it. I mean, I'm just gonna call it like it is. That's what we've been doing today. You know, a lot of the behaviors that we see publicly isn't a good representation of the overall industry. It's been something we need to focus on.
So, you know, Don Chico says that it's not going to launch, but it's going to launch without any action from our lawmakers, without any action from our governor. If it passes in the legislature, if it passes at the ballot, then I think it gets enacted 90 days later. So it gets enacted like February 3rd or whatever the date
If
is.
somebody's argument against 820 is the fact that the government will hold it up and it won't launch, then vote yes for it anyway. Worst case scenario, it doesn't launch. Best case scenario, it does. Like, well, why would you be against it off the fear that it won't launch? You know, it that's not logical.
It would
Even if
require
you
a
don't-
majority in both chambers. It would
it's
require a
practice.
majority. Sorry, Isaac, I was speaking over you. It's you know, both chambers, the majority of both chambers would have to vote to stop it. And I could imagine them, you know, one of the things they're probably going to do is, if the only thing that passes is 820, they're going to override the $2,500 licensing fee, and they're going to go back to, right, they're going to go back to their tiers. There are a few things they're probably going to change, but in terms of everybody 21 and older having access, in terms of the expungement, it would require an unbelievable political shift in our legislature for those not to happen.
When you consider that us going rec allows them to stop looking like hypocrites, I see no reason why they would get in front of it. They get to say it's a medical or a rec program, and we make all kinds of money on it.
The only argument I could see is them not wanting cannabis tourism and then try to limit it only to people with Oklahoma ID. That's the only thing I could sort of fathom in my head of how they might want to narrow down what 820 says. But that means they lose hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue.
Yeah, that is taking some zeros off of the
No.
end sheet.
Yeah, they're not gonna lose money.
No, for sure.
OG, I see you've joined us. Harv, you there? Well, his little thing is sitting there. Let's see. There is Doc Chico. Okay. Let's see. We got room for everybody. Okay, who wants to add something here while we're waiting for him to join in? Harv, are you having trouble hearing, or you're not working yet, or what? What about you, Don? You working yet? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just can't see you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
try swiping to one side or the other. I think you're probably on a phone.
Yeah, I'm on the iPhone.
Okay, I think you push one way or the other, and you should be able to turn on your camera. Oh, Harv, I see you're there. I can see that beautiful beard. Why don't you give us some of that beautiful wisdom and explain to me why you are so worried about 820. You're not working. Your sound isn't working. You're muted.
All right, how's that?
That's better.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm kind of like with Damon, you know, in the same situation with him on 820. You know, at first, you know, I was kind of anti and against with everything, and I think a lot of that was a knee jerk, just because of how it was presented and how things went down. And you know, a lot of us that were here from the beginning kind of know a lot more of the history of that and how, you know. But where we're at today is what matters, right? And where we're at today, I feel, you know, 818, 819, and 820 all, and I said the same thing to Isaac, and I agree with them. It's got to be a yes, yes, yes push, because any negative connotations whatsoever towards any of it at this point is going to have ripple effects, butterfly effects throughout the whole thing, no matter what you do. And that's just from my point of view. So I will put it out there that Oklahoma Cannabis Club is going to be pushing a yes on all three of these. I think at this point that is our best alternative with the situation we're in. Now, you know, there's the things that other things to look at besides Oklahoma when this comes into play. And if you look at the politics that are going on in other states, you look at what's going on in Texas and how they're discussing not only you know, changing their program and increasing access there, but not having growers for 2 years and importing that from states like Oklahoma. So, you know, there's lots of other factors that are going on. And you look at the National Cannabis Party that has now gained national recognition officially, right? So we've got some major headway that's taking place. You've got a lot of things pushing, and I think that's the way we have to stay. We have to stay positive and kill the negative drama bullshit. I mean,
Try.
If I may say something, again, I'm not as educated as you guys on as about the political part. But for me, when they talk about the fact that 820 can be messed with legislators, they don't want government overreach. For Black people, you know, we needed government to step in to say that slavery was illegal. We had them to come, we needed them to come in and say, you can't kill us. Like, so sometimes we're the only ones that benefit when the government comes in and says, don't do this, because it helps us. So it sounds all good, you know, don't have government overreach or whatever, but in order for us to get on even playing field, sometimes we need the government. So I'm not as opposed when people talk about government overreach, as long as it doesn't harm people in the ways. That's why I listen to you guys. I want to know the pros and the cons. So,
You know, I think that's a great point, that while this community, for the most part, those of us that we hear the most, just want to get the government out of our lives, that doesn't work for everybody. You know, here's an entire community we're not paying any attention to that need the help of the government, and we want to shut the government down because we don't like the way they look at us. I mean, it's not all bad. The government can be used for good things. It's how we interact with the government that determines that.
and who's there and who's present and who do we put in? I mean, that's what we're trying to get representation so that we can have the power and the influence.
Don, I don't
I
see
still
your
can't get my
cameras work.
camera. Yeah, my camera's still not working, but I'm listening.
Okay, well,
My-
I want you to go ahead and give your opinion, please, because I know you were one that was on here that is against 820. So I want you and Lawrence to talk about this for a second.
Well, my one of my major concerns is the extra licensing requirement. Why do we need an extra licensing when, I mean, you look at 819 and 818. 819 is calling for pretty much the dissolution of OMA and a new organization created, which in my opinion isn't so bad. But when you look at 820, 820 has a whole bunch of different things going on with it. It's not just about cannabis. You look at 820 and it talks about different types from processors to growers to, it's vague. It's really vague. When you look at 819 and 818 filed by Orca, they're straight to the point. There's nothing left out at all.
So
Lawrence, I'd like you to address that, please. And
there's
Don,
two
I'd like
things-
you to know, hold on, Lawrence. I want you to address that, but Don, I'd like you to know that Lawrence helped write those petitions. So he knows what's in them. Lawrence, go ahead.
Yeah, so my hands were on the keyboard for about half or 2/3 of 819, maybe about a quarter of 818. And so they all leave a lot of things out. They're not regulating every aspect of cannabis, nor should they, right? They're
Right.
right. But so what 820, and I agree with you. I don't like the idea that there are two separate licenses in 820. I don't like that. I try to talk them out of it. But they put in a separate license, $2,500 for each. What they also put in, though, was that there shouldn't be any separate regulations for rec except what's absolutely required, which is basically just a matter of proof of ID that you're 21. So one of the things that they put into 820 that 819 doesn't have is it ties the hands of the regulators, saying that the only further regulations they could put in regarding rec are the ones that are absolutely required based upon statute. Now, they have almost nothing to say about business regulations in general. They have almost nothing to say about businesses in general, because that's not what it's about. What 819 and 820 are both about is everybody 21 and older should have legal access. And at least initially for both 819 and 820, that we should be able to expunge criminal records. And so that's what 819 and 820 were originally. They stripped the expungement out of 819. But
Right,
820 is not about business, just like 819 is not about business. They're both
Well, if you look
about
at,
protecting.
if you look at, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it says right here, it would restrict business licenses to establish medical marijuana licenses for the first 2 years. It would impose a 15% sale excise tax to consumers, not applicable to the medical marijuana program.
Right.
And it says to fund the authority and the surplus directed to localities where sales occur 10%, to the general revenue 30%, and to the courts 10%, to the schools and programs. I mean, this is all sounds great, but isn't this what we voted on 788? I mean,
Well,
where's the
no,
transparency?
but
Like there was
all that
supposed to
is
be
in-
some kind of transparency with 788 and there was none.
So
So
all-
how am I supposed to believe that there's going to be transparency with 820?
But so the words are on the paper, right? But the allocation of funds are in 818 has a big laundry list of where the money is going as well. Same with 819. They both have a long list of all the different things that they want to send the money to. Right. So all of them are doing that. And the 15% tax is in 819 as well.
Yeah, I seen the 15% tax in 819, which I'm curious how that's going to work. I mean, I understand the 2 years, and it's not supposed to touch the medical program. But the problem that I see with all of these bills, I mean, I support 819 and 818, but the problem that I see, and a lot of businesses are seeing this, and nobody's actually talking about it. Doing these and bringing recreational is going to be good for the state for money wise. But when the black market hits, it's going to come back to life because recreational is going to be so high. If anybody remembers when the medical program started 2 years ago, you couldn't go into any dispensary and get any kind of 1 ounce of medicine for under $300 almost. So what's going to happen when the recreational program comes and it does get passed, because it will, eventually it's going to get passed in Oklahoma, the money is going to be the tie. Now, with the 15% tax on recreational and medical program, not having to pay a tax at all, what's going to happen is your black market dealers are going to come back into play because they're going to go, somebody a medical card, and it's not going to be discovered because this happens a lot. And then they're going to start supplying on the black market. Now, Alma's not worried about these individuals. Alma's worried about these growers. I've been seeing it on the news. Everybody has. How do you stop that? Because it's going to be, I mean, nobody's talking about it because everybody's like, oh, well, the black market's bad, blah, blah, blah. But how we got to 788 was the black market.
I agree.
And nobody wants to say that.
I
still
say it all the
here.
time, brother.
It's not going to go away. The black market's never going to go away.
Man, I think yeah.
I mean,
Harv,
period.
me, you, Harv, and old dude here is talking is on the same
I mean,
page.
again, I know plenty of people for years has been going to other states
Black
participating.
market's
in
where we
black
came
markets.
from. Before this thing was an industry, it was a culture. Black market's always going to be around. And this is my argument to the black market. They got something against the black market. What they need to do is take all that money and the resources that they have and form a team and go file a lawsuit against our federal government. They need to be fighting on our behalf. You know what I mean? That's what they need to do instead of tightening reins around here. As long as there are other states that are no states, Kansas, Nebraska, you name them, that are around us, they're going to rely on our product, just as we did California, Colorado, even Mexico. We
Washington. Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah,
We
hold on.
relied on that.
All right, hold on a second,
there's-
guys. Hold on a second. Don, I want to address something you brought up. Lawrence, I want you to address it a little bit more, but I'm going to set it up here. You talk about
how the price is going to go up. If we bring in
Exactly.
full access, the price is going to go up. And you imply, correct me if I'm wrong, but you imply that somehow it's all going to be sold in rec because that gets a 15% tax. So the state's going to want that.
No, what I'm
Okay,
saying is,
so then if it goes up, it will be for a very short time and it will balance itself back out. We shouldn't stop progress because of a small peak.
Well, how much money is that, Chris? It's only 8%. It's an extra 8% on the rec market, right?
Right, so the difference is if 820 passes, it'll be still 7% excise on medical, 15% excise on rec, a difference of 8%. And if I'm trying to make money off of that by having somebody with a card pay at 7% and then selling through the black market, I only have an 8% margin,
Right.
right?
That's what I'm saying. That's my point. And my other point is we're talking about the what's in it and what's not in it. What we really need to be addressing is what Chris has talked about. And I know me and Isaac beat each other's ear about it. 820 is going to make it. It has the money to get the signatures. If it's the only one on the ballot, it's going to get pushed through. If you're worried about that, that's why you have to support all three, because when you create the division and the confusion, you're going to see the end result at the polls. Trust me, the general public is ignorant to all of this. They have no idea.
Yeah, let me add that 819 is more likely to expand the black market than 820, because 819 is going to create a 15% margin between the patient and the non-patient. 820 is only going to create an 8%.
Right.
And
So
goes on
the
the black market. If we're truly talking about stopping the black market, you don't stop the black market with making it more expensive and everything. You stop the black market by legalizing it everywhere. When you can go in every state in the United States and buy weed legally, it will no longer be profitable or make sense for there to be a black market.
And that's
Okay.
been one of my things is it's about decriminalization.
Pfizer's already guaranteed the black market's not going to go anywhere. They dumped $7 billion. The black market is going to live.
you can't get rid of the black market. Just for instance, right now,
Okay.
say you go to a recreational and it's $350 for an ounce, and then they put a 15% tax on it. That makes it $402.50. What's going to stop that recreational patient, instead of paying $402 for an ounce, to go to somebody else and get it for $150?
Why do we care?
Right.
We care because the black market is going to affect these bills. And that's what I'm talking about. Nobody wants to talk about this.
Hold on. We're talking over each other. Okay, hold on. Don, personally, I don't give a damn. I don't care what money the state makes.
Right.
I care about ending the prosecution of people. I don't give a damn about where the money goes. And yeah, all the petitions have all kinds of places where the money goes. And you're worried about what they're doing with the money in 820, 818 and 819, although the constitutional amendments actually give the ability of adjusting the money to the legislators, as it should.
Guys, we have more.
So it does the exact same thing 820 does.
We
So
have
what is it? Hold on. So Don, I want to know. I want to understand this. I'm not trying to argue with you. I want to understand why you're worried. What is the purpose of being worried against 820?
The purpose is, like I said, yes, you're right. They all have some kind of place of where they're going to go. Okay. But where is the transparency? And that's my deal. Where is the transparency in any of these bills? Because 788 was supposed to be transparent and it never was. Okay. None of these bills are transparent, really. I mean, they say where they're going to go, and that's great to write it and it looks good on paper. But what happens when it actually gets into motion is different, because you look at 788. 788 was great. It was a good start. And that's where we started from. But since then, it's been nothing but a headache. And why is that? Why is that?
I don't know you, John. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, hold on. I'd like Shaylon, am I pronouncing that right?
It's Shalon.
Shalon, please. I'd like to hear from you about this, please.
Hi, Don. My name is Shalon. I just have a question for you.
Sure.
Are your concerns at this moment more important than the criminal justice reform aspect? Because we lose that for another year or two, if we don't pass it. So are your concerns bigger than that from where you stand?
My concerns aren't so much bigger than the reform, except for the fact that without the businesses, okay, there is no money. Okay. Which, once again, these bills are putting a hurt on a lot of mom and pop shops. So without the money, there's no reform. There's not going to be a way for them to reform. I looked at some of the other stuff and it says, yeah, we're going to get it expunged and blah, blah, blah. While that sounds good, and everybody knows this, STIT is full on board to take down our medical program. So anything that has to do with any kind of reform, he's going to be more strict than these bills. I'm telling you, even to the point that he might even shoot it down because STIT has already made the comment that it was a mistake.
He doesn't have legal authority to.
I don't.
Yeah. Look, not only does he not have legal authority, but again, we've talked about this a few times. We don't believe that there's the will, because it would actually, they would be able to morally be more correct if we had a rec program, because they publicly stated, both one of our senators and STIT have both publicly stated in the last month that we didn't know what we were voting for. So we need to take the medical off of this, and they'll have a different approach. And I'd like you
I
to
just
go
don't
again.
see how so many voters could be wrong that we didn't know what the hell we were voting on. That doesn't make any sense.
Can I add this?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can I add this? When you're talking about on voters and STIT and all that, like, I think we're at a point with the politics and with STIT and all the temperature within the politics itself, that we have to get all three of these. We have to unify together as one voice at this point to send a message, to be able to make a stand and make a statement. I mean, you don't want to talk about pitchfork potheads and going and rallying at capitals and doing these things. That's all great and makes a point in and of itself. But the real point is getting in there and getting votes, right? And getting your vote counted and making a change that way. And I think to really make a statement and put our voice out there, we've got to unify behind these. And I don't agree with the entire language on all three of these. I mean, there's pros and cons to all this, and there's going to be pros and cons no matter what, no matter where we're at on this stuff. And we're not going to have any one perfect document that anybody's going to agree on, no matter what we do. But we've got to make a stand at this point, and this is our greatest opportunity to make a point and to drive, not only that, to make a big difference, right? I mean, besides that, I mean, the criminal justice aspect of it in and of itself is tremendous strides that Oklahoma has been way behind the mark on. And for me, it's all about decriminalization and ultimately descheduling, but that's a pipe dream, right? So that's why I just want to make those points. And if we're talking about allocation of funds too, now, the states always, and I think that may be a hang up with a lot of people, because they see the money that was supposed to go to schools. Well, yeah, it went to schools, but what did they do? They took that same amount of funding that was already allocated for the schools out of the general fund, and they removed that. So really the money that went in to fund the schools did no good, made no difference, because it just was a wash, right? And so people see the state make those kind of moves in allocating funds. And I don't know if that's what Sam was referring to when in regards to funds, but I just wanted to drop those 2 points. Can
I say something about the black market?
Yeah.
Obviously we have a black market now. We have close to 10,000 growers for roughly 400,000 card holders. And as everybody knows, a card holder buys for multiple people, and people come in from other states in order to get cannabis here. So we have a massive, massive black market right now. Right. If we had full access either through 819 or 820, that means that people coming in from out of state, people who don't have cards that live in our state, could go to a dispensary. It seems to me that one way or another, there's going to be a black market. We all agree. But will more customers go to a dispensary if 819 or 820 passes than today?
Yes.
I just
100%.
wanted
Hold on, I'd like to hear from Shaylin again. I'm sorry.
Shalon. It's
Shalon
Shalon.
again. I'm sorry. Please jump in.
It was just the response to Don. You know, I'm obviously I'm a Black woman, but I also have a mom and pop. You know, it's called Young Buds, and so again, I told you I don't really participate in a lot of what's talked about because I don't. It's not a passion of mine, cannabis, as much as, like I said, my activism. But I've never been affected by these regulations and these rules worse when people talk about it. So his comment was the 820, a lot of mom and pops, all these regulations and changes the government has done has affected. It has not affected me. What has affected me is the fact that I don't have as much money as a big corporation. I mean, I can build my business plan and my model to cater to my neighborhood, my customers, and I do just fine. But I can't sell a product as cheaply as someone as big as these other companies when I pay the same price they're selling it for to get it wholesale. So to me, I only pay attention when people are talking about how to help mom and pop survive. When we talk about catering these bills to the government, again, no disrespect to anyone, but a lot of people were talking with the government officials for all these bills that happened. And then when the tiered and moratorium, the language and everything got changed, everyone's like, oh my God, they changed it on us. Look what they did us. I'm like, I thought everyone knew that's what politicians did. So like, I'm not interested in catering or pretending to be something or to cater to them because they're going to do what they want to do. It's all about, I'm with the unifying to get what we need across. You know what I mean? So that's why as a mom and pop, it didn't affect me. I'm not one of those people saying metric is bad and all these things. I'm mom and pop. I'm small. I've been doing it for 3 years. So I just wanted to, I'm really interested in the points that 820 are bad and trying to listen to them, give people a platform. But if they don't have real facts like you guys have, I just want to be, I'm going to be responding to, what's his name? Daryl, DC, all the people that's going to post it, I am going to be responding. That's why I'm participating right now. I really want to hear the facts of why people support it so I can really not think it's all about me.
What I'd
No.
like you to do is help us understand better what the criminal justice reform can do for your community.
I mean, absolutely. There are a lot of people right now, when I was talking about the petitions, they can't even, I said, you have to be registered to vote. So they were talking about, well, I can't get registered to vote because I'm this. Well, Vanessa Hall Harper out in North Tulsa, they're doing expungement clinics. There's one going on in Oklahoma City this month in June. They're expungement clinics because a lot of people don't realize that you actually can register to vote with certain convictions on your record. So it's really getting out in the communities of the people. It's really not the business owners, in my opinion. My customers are the ones, like you said, are the uneducated ones. They're not on Facebook listening to you guys. They're not participating. So it's really, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going into my communities. So I think everyone knows the war on drugs affected Black and brown communities more. Everyone knows that New York, when they passed their cannabis program, they said not only can the people who were affected by criminal justice charges can get that license first, they said even your family member. If you just had a family member that was affected by the war on drugs, you get your license first. New York did that. So
But New York also has a $5 million application fee just to be considered.
absolutely. But again, there are other, and I'm not in agreement with that. Chicago, Illinois, they had the social equity applicants, but no one ever got any because someone filed a lawsuit against it because they didn't feel like the selection process was fair. Well, that's been thrown out. They're moving forward, but they can still be hiccups. So again, that's what I'm talking about. Black and brown people are trying to get into the position so that we can help progress this, because again, all this division, it stops it, you know? So I only want to really work with people. Like I said, we all care about businesses, making money. I get that. But my concern is the progression of my people.
Hey, Shalon, can I follow up with you real quick?
Yes.
I like your idea of getting out there on this Juneteenth and trying to do something and doing some outreach. So if you want to get a hold of me, I wouldn't mind having another, female along the way. I'm always by myself when I go to do stuff. So just wanted to throw that out there because you say you're not a face, but you're definitely a face. Because when I think of a face that represents, minority or people of color in business, your face is probably one of the most common. So
I guess that's my thing, is I wish more the people that come and talk to me, I wish they would talk to you guys, because I don't always want to be the voice, because I am angry a lot of the times and I, try to be professional, but this is one of the only industries. I'm from a medical mental health background. I do have a master's level education, but I think a lot of the problems with mom and pops for all colors, all races is education. Okay, we talk about where Oklahoma ranks in education. Forgive me, I'm not trying to be offensive, but I see that on the Facebook post. We talk about mental health being a problem in Oklahoma. Okay, I'm a professional. I see that. So I don't want to be disrespectful when I respond to these people's posts, but it does, because some people will say, well, you're not big enough to matter or you're not important enough. Well, that comes off disrespectful. There's a way I can say that sounds better, but you're going to still be offended because I'm over here diagnosing you. So that's the part I try to say professional. I've commented on your live. I think you guys do have to constantly say that, but don't participate in the dialogue. You know, I've been listening to you guys. You obviously are friends and stuff, but you know, I'm not saying I'm against cursing because I curse, but when you're trying to push a professional message, you have to be professional yourselves. And so that's the commentary, that's the back and forth, because I respect you guys because I can tell your intellect is up here. Again, I've listened to all of you. I've watched you talk. Okay. And I see your work in the community, especially OG Harb. You know, I see it. So, and I know that's not that's your Facebook name. So, but y'all go ahead and talk. I'm done.
Hey, real
Well,
quick,
go ahead.
on these petitions, especially 818 and 819, we've talked about these different events that are going on in the next 90 days. You know, you're gonna have the 4th of July in the mix. You're gonna have lots of events going on all over, and people constantly say, well, you know, we need to see the petitions here, we need to see the petitions there. In a grassroots movement, you are they. You know, if you think that we should be here or there with the petitions, then grab those petitions, get them in your hands, round your friends up that are like-minded, and go out there with a flag with some clipboards and gather some signatures, because that's what we've done in the past. That's it. You are they. If you think they should be out there with those petition boards, you are they.
And that's 100% because, you know, I know a lot of people, like, matter of fact, me and Grumpy met by petitions. He handed me petition, I think, one day.
Yeah.
And you know, then I handed that petition to somebody else. And, you know, and that's how it happens, right? That's where the grassroots comes in. It's like shaking hands almost, you know. So definitely.
It's a spark, it's a flame, man. You constantly got gas going. I gotta ignite you.
Let me say something about expungement, if I may.
Yes.
I wish it stayed in 819 because the expungement in 819 was pretty expansive, but it's just about as expansive in 820. And so this is not just people who say can get a misdemeanor released. This is people who have felony convictions for home cultivation. This is for people who were caught, say, with 3 packages and were charged with intent to distribute. That anything that's legal based upon 820 is eligible for expungement. If you had multiple packages, if you were handing some over to your friend, if you were growing at home, all of that is eligible for expungement.
Yeah,
and so we're talking about a vast number of people. Again, the estimates are approaching 100,000 Oklahomans with cannabis convictions. Many of them are felonies. Those go away with 820. And unfortunately, 820 is the only vehicle to get rid of them.
I'm on parole and
What was that, David?
He said he's
I
on
think-
parole. And I'm pretty sure that in Damon's case, I would hope, even though it was child endangerment, I think
no. Hold on, Lawrence. It was child neglect, brother.
Sorry,
That's
child
even
neglect.
worse. That's worse than child endangerment. I just want to throw that out there. 85%. Go ahead.
That what you were doing that stemmed, right? That was the basis for those charges, that you were growing a few plants at home. That would have been legal, right? That would have been legal based upon 820.
Yeah.
And so my expectation is that rather than you continuing on parole, you can get your charges expunged. Your felony goes away. I hope.
Yeah.
I contract real quick. I contract in the past with child services here in Oklahoma. And I'm telling you, as a person that's done that for years, I couldn't even tell you how to avoid getting a child neglect or endangerment charge with cannabis. And I know their rules.
Well, I was referring to a Frontier article the other day that in Noble County and Kay County. Hermanson, I think is his name. He had prosecuted 22 women in the last few years that were pregnant and using drugs, 7 of which were for marijuana, 3 of which had cards. One of those card holders actually had the affidavit from the doctor that stated it was recommended for and during pregnancy use or whatever. So I don't know, and that was in Ponca City, and I don't know the extent if they took the daughter away or the child away. I'm not sure, but it's still going on to this
That's
day.
what I'm saying. It's needed. I get that we're not happy with the language and stuff. I'm sure. I guess again, when we're talking to people, can have so many arguments about the police killing people or the abortion or the mass shootings and all that. At what point does morality matter more? That's it. So criminal justice reform, all for it. Like, I don't get it. I really don't.
I think we're all on the same page on that one.
I agree.
Pam, would you like to throw something in at the table here? No? Okay. Well, you just hang out. Let us know if you want to say anything. All right. This has been going on quite a while. Is
Almost
anybody
4
ready to-
hours.
What?
4 hours.
Is anybody
I had this
tired?
big
Is it
stack
just
of things
me?
I was supposed to read today.
I'm not tired.
can be
I think
late,
these
so I can
discussions need to
come.
happen.
And I wanted to make one more comment. People were talking about the money. To clarify my statements on education and mental health in Oklahoma, yes, I do care about the money, because when we're talking about the business owners, we're all patients. I suffer from mental health issues. You know, I feel like a lot of my intellect, you know, when it comes to PTSD and depression, I'm always able to access parts of my brain unless I'm using cannabis. So for me, I do care about the money when it comes to criminal justice reform, because we need to build those programs for education, for mental health, because our government does not care. That is the reasons why we have so many problems. So I think it all connects. So I just wanted to clarify that. I do care about the money too, where it goes in the community.
Yeah, and I'll say again, there's no way the government's going to stand in the way of full access. It gives them a clean conscience and more money, and they want both.
Well, then it drives home what I say too, Chris. I like to add this to it. The petitioning process is going to be under attack even more, right? If something like this doesn't happen now, who's to say that we have that petitioning process in the future? This may be our last ditch effort.
It may be. Okay, guys, I'm not opposed to doing this again later on today, but I need a break. It's been
All
a
right.
long one. I need to get out of this chair for a while. I want to thank you for coming here. Please, we need more ladies to come in here and talk. This is entirely too often just me speaking, and that needs to happen a lot less. We need to hear from you guys more, and I welcome your input. So thank you. All right. You guys okay with wrapping it up now? Are we good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, we can come back later. I'll post about it if everybody wants to. We can even do it. I can open this later on. Everybody can come in offline and sit around, smoke and chat and do whatever they want to do. So thank you
Okay.
all for joining. Thank you everybody for watching. If DC decides he wants to join at some point, I'm happy to help make that happen. Until then, stay grumpy. I'll see you on the road.